And again, as a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed as well as it's being recorded. And with that being said, unless you're going to speak, if you can mute, that way we can have maximum efficiency as far as any type of feedback that takes place. And I would ask Joseph if he'd be kind enough at this point to take the roll.
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So I will take the roll call now, starting with Dennis Walcott.
I am here, sir.
Yvonne Collado.
Here.
Marilyn Go. Kevin Hanratty.
Here.
Maria Mateo.
Here.
Joshua Sneps. Lisa Soren. Monsignor Kevin Sullivan.
Here.
Kai Ki Wong. Ma Fuden.
Present.
Michael Schnall.
Here.
Kristen Johnson.
Here.
Gregory Kirschenbaum. Mark Rozelle.
Present.
Darren Porcher.
Present, and I'm upset that John is not wearing a baseball cap today.
All right, and with that, that concludes the roll call.
Well, it's so nice of you, Darren, to let people into our little back and forths with each other around baseball caps and everything. So having and using that as a really a ramp up to, I think, what we're going to be doing today, and going back to Maria's point before the meeting started. Yeah, Maria, we're going to have a hard stop at 8, and then tomorrow we'll reconvene at 10, even though I'll probably be on around 10:05 because I need to give greetings to a senior leadership team at the library. So 10:05. But let me just try to define what we'll be doing today, because one, I want to thank all the hardworking staff and also our commissioners for, I think, a lot of work and a lot of detailed work throughout the months. And, when you think back of the number of meetings that we've had, both in the public and our discussions around mapping, we have been really very detailed as far as interaction and trying to put this very complex puzzle together. Marv, if you can mute yourself, complex puzzle together as far as the new maps for New York City. And when you think back, we've been all over the city. We've been holding public meetings in the boroughs. We've met as late as 12:30 in the morning. We've met on Sundays. We've met 10 p.m., 10:15 p.m. I mean, we've just had a lot of various meetings, and I think this is another step in reaching out to the public. And I want to share with you and the public some really interesting numbers in that we've had 12,458 responses from the public, both to the preliminary plan and the revised plan that we looked at last week. And that was earlier today. So no telling, we probably have more since then. And that to me is a lot of hard work on the part of staff, and obviously making ourselves available to get feedback. And that doesn't count the individual meetings that a lot of you have had with the public as well. So I want to thank the public for their input and really discussions. And that to me has formed a hard part of the basis of our discussion as far as that foundation has been laid. And since this is a mapping session, and sometimes we get lost in the words of acronyms versus the actual words, I'm going to ask, when it's John's turn and others, to really just give a primer for the people who may be listening around the acronyms they may hear in our discussions as well. And then following that, I'm just going to ask the mappers to lay out a little bit as far as the types of overlays that take place when we ask for a certain overlay on the map to help guide us in the process in our discussion, for them to take us through that so the public can just see, again, at the macro 50,000 foot level, some of the overlays that have been part of this mapping process. So the next steps will be for us to get into, I think, the number of questions that people raised at the last meeting that we had that was down on Reed Street, and any lingering discussions that people and questions that people may have had. I know staff has reached out to people individually to get feedback as well. But as I've said to some of you, this is not a thumb on the scale discussion. This is going to be our normal, free-flowing, trying to address the issues. And we're going to go through our agenda, but really with the agenda, we're going to talk about the deviation. We're going to be talking about, again, mapping. We're going to be talking about the various districts and questions that people had. And I know a number of people raised those questions. And with that being said, just laying the foundation to our great executive director, who has been the leading person in working with us in trying to help put all this together so we can come out with a map to submit and hopefully be approved at the appropriate point. I'll turn it over to John for his overview. John? John? Where's John?
I was unmuting myself.
I figured as much, but I was trying to do as much stalling to let you unmute yourself.
That's I'm unmuted now. I'm
Okay,
unmuzzled.
Take it from there.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners, and our phenomenal staff to get us help to work you to this point where we are now. So there were a couple of important underlying concepts, and you'll hear from some of our other staff and our key consultants on line drawers, as the chair pointed out. But one of them is this term called deviation, and it's embedded in the city charter. It's an actual number that is also in a number of judicial decisions about how much latitude would a commissioner or a body that's charged to redraw lines, whether it's council districts or assembly or congressional, et cetera. And there are different standards. In our case, specifically in New York State, up until a year ago, and certainly in all prior commissioners who were drawing our city council lines, we had this number called deviation, which was 10%, which gave the commissioners latitude of a 10%, and I'll drill down on that in a minute, to redraw those districts. And what's underlying the impetus for needing to drive to redraw is that the census, once every 10 years, comes out with a new count of what the population is. And we are now past 2020, and those numbers are official. They're federally government certified numbers. They conduct the census. And they've told us here in New York City that we now have more than 630,000 New Yorkers in our 5 boroughs that there were in place 10 years ago, this last time the process occurred. And now we have a second motion that has given us new guardrails for the commissioners on this deviation question. Barely a year ago, the state legislature passed a law in home rule law. It's called home rule. And it affects our jurisdiction, New York City, and they cut our deviation in half. We now have to work with only 5% variation or wiggle room for you, the commissioners, as you're using that census data, a whole other set of factors, but you have to redraw these lines. That's also in the charter that requires it. So if I could go quickly to a concrete example. So when you redraw the preliminary plan, you did work with the 5%, and you had one option that the commissioners approved to release with the preliminary plan. You had 3 whole districts on Staten Island, and Staten Island now has approximately 500,000 and a half people there. If you were to divide that by 3, if you do the math quickly, you'll discover that you have about a 4%, more than 4% for those three districts are on Staten Island. But the rule in the charter says you can only have a total swing or wiggle room of 5. So if you've already used up 4 in those for those 3 districts, then the other 48 districts throughout the entire city can't have more than a total combined 1%. So that's was one of the challenges that you had in putting your first map together. You did put it together, you put it out, you did all of those hearings, and boy, did you get a lot of feedback on that first plan, because you had to do some things like what they call cross-borough districts and a number of other things. So that's why a lot of feedback came, new arrangements, new lines, and you're considering that when you decided to required in effect to redraw again. So we are now in this world of 5%. That means the smallest to the largest district overall between the 51, you can only eat up a total of a 5% range. Whereas you used to have you do have a couple of commissioners there. Commissioner Wurzel was on the last commission when they had a 10% range from the largest to the smallest of those 51 districts. So that deviation has closed in on us, and we got much more of a mathematical challenge today with this commission, with this set of numbers than any previous commission had to grapple with. So that's basically the concept around deviation, and that's the state law that we're working from to do this work. Another concept that is important, RBV, that's an acronym that the chair mentioned. There's a lot of terms you'll hear thrown around. RBV, that stands for Racial Block Voting Analysis. And as it might infer, it has something to do with voting rights, okay? And the voting rights law that was first promulgated in 1964 is still intact. Parts of it have been ruled unconstitutional. Once a couple of sections no longer apply. One of them is called pre-clearance. There was a time that your work had to be submitted before either the Justice Department or federal court in District of Columbia before you could move out with your maps. That particular section has been declared unconstitutional now, but there is Section 2, and there are parts of the voting rights do exist, and we are still under parts of that are under our jurisdiction, under that jurisdiction now. So what does that translate to? There are 3 in New York City. There are 3 major racial groups that are under that umbrella: Black, Asian, and Hispanic New Yorkers. So, and if you put those populations together, it's the majority of New Yorkers, right? We're 8.8 million, we're 5 million registered voters, and those 3 groups, Black, Hispanic, Asian, they're on the radar with federal jurisdictions, whether it's the federal courts or the U.S. Justice Department, and advocates, civil rights groups, et cetera. They want to ensure, and it's also spelled out in our city charter, that minority voting rights are a priority of consideration when you, as the commission, move into your work of redesigning these districts. That's high up. I think it's number 1 or 2 on the criteria list in our own city charter, that's a priority consideration, along with several others. But I'm only being asked to deliberate on that particular item called RBV. So what we've done here to make sure that we're covering that territory, we actually retained one of the top analysts in that field. That happens to be Dr. Lisa Handley. And she uses certain statistical techniques. It's like diagnostics. Once you do the map, she does diagnostics using certain statistical programs. It's called regression analysis, and another form that is used to run data. All of this data that we used, the census data that has been compiled, that matches up to those 51 districts. She actually does a diagnostic to let us know, and she also uses I was going to say a ton. She actually used over 150 elections in the last 5 years to analyze the voting patterns of those three groups to see if the districts that we've put together are going to enhance, support, sustain the voting rights opportunities for those particular groups that have the ability to choose or vote for the candidates of their choice in these new districts that have been created. And she actually did give us a report. She did maps you just released at our last meeting and indicated her analysis shows that you are on solid footing right now as far as the voting rights districts that are embedded in the new plan, that the most recent plan that was released. You have not approved this plan on the 22nd, right? But you asked us to, as staff, to put it up on the website after you deliberated on it. And now you're in the process of moving to another stage, hopefully to come out with another map. So every time we do a map, we do want to have that diagnostics done on our work so that we don't put out a map that we're vulnerable to some type of litigation or voting rights challenge to our maps. So it's like a precautionary step by doing that diagnostics on our maps. So that's why this quote RBV work is important to the work that you're doing and giving you feedback as you're moving along. And then lastly, I'll mention a couple of other acronyms you hear. You might hear something called VAP or CVAP. VAP, 3 letters, VAP, that just stands for voting age population. And that just means adults who are 18 or older, because that's the eligibility age that anybody in the city of New York, if you have citizenship or residency, depending on what the laws are here in New York City for voting or state, we're looking at those groups, not only by race, but by age to make sure that the populations are eligible to vote and participate in the electoral process once you redesign these 51 districts. So, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, those are just a couple of the concepts that are underpinning the work that we're doing as we move forward.
Thanks, John. And again, just for not just our commissioners, for the public that's listening in, we just wanted to give you a foundation as we start to wax poetic in jumping into the maps. If we do go into the use of acronyms and some of the guideposts that we have to follow. One other piece, and then we'll open it up totally, is I would like for the mappers, if they can, just to do a quick overview of the type of lenses that we look at when we're mapping, so people have a sense as we start to move in our discussions what types of requests may be made to analyze a particular district or a particular area or borough. So can our mappers just put something up to just give the public a sense of what we've been grappling with and that insider look as far as the capabilities of the mapping opportunities available to us? Certainly.
I'll go ahead and put that up. Could you please enable to share? I'll go ahead and add that up.
This would be Fabian and Bryn from our nationally renowned line drawing organization, and they're going to give us this demo.
Thanks, John.
It's called Redistricting Partners, the team they work with.
Hopefully everybody can see my screen now. What I'm showing you right here is Maptitude for redistricting. This is the program we use to do all of our line drawing with the commission. Specifically, what we have up here is the map we're going to be drawing on today. And you can see has the district numbers, the lines, deviations. We also have some tables up here that give us, adjusted population. Again, adjusted population is the number we're using. That came from the New York State. It reallocates prison population. So that's the number we use for drawing our districts. We have it by VAP, as Dr. Flateau talked about. VAP voting age population is 18 plus. We also have citizen voting age population, which comes from the Census American Community Survey. On the left here, you can see a lot of different layers we use. There's a few layers in particular we just kind of have up all the time, and there's some layers we toggle on and off as required. For instance, the districts that we've been drawing up. Some of the layers we'd like to keep up are also the Housing Authority, New York City Housing Authority layers. As you can see, if I zoom in here, I can give you an idea of what this looks like. You can see these blocks are the Housing Authority. So we use that to try not to split any Housing Authority places, down in the middle, down a street or something of that nature, or cut them off anyway. So we keep that layer. Other layers we've used many, many times include current city council districts. I can turn on so you can see. This is the city council districts as they were drawn 10 years ago. We use that quite often. We use business development, the bid business development districts. We use those often. We use things like where hospitals might be located, schools, colleges, cultural institutions. We also use the community boards quite a lot. The community boards, we have, you can see this dotted line. We use that one a lot. And another one we use quite a lot actually is the neighborhoods. And these are the neighborhoods as proposed by the city. They kind of just give you these ideas of where the neighborhoods lie. So we use all of those layers in conjunction with drawing to make sure, if we're drawing a line down a certain street, we try to say, okay, is it just one block south of a community board? Can we move it to the community board line and try to keep that line even? Do things like that typically the drawing is being done. So that's kind of a breakdown of the layers that we use. On top of all the stuff we have in the system, the mapping system, we also have a lot of publicly submitted maps that we make reference to. For instance, any submitted map that came in through Maptitude, any submitted map that came in through District R, or that was submitted via shapefile or some sort of written documentation. All of those are also being used by the commission. Oftentimes, commissioners will say, hey, can I see X submission? We'll pull that up, we'll look at that, and we'll make reference to that when we're drawing our lines.
Thank you very much. And before we open it up, we have just two more items in laying our foundation for discussion, because since our last meeting, thanks, Fabian. Since our last meeting, we've had a number of comments and public testimony. And if Michael can just give the commissioners an update on some of the public testimony that's come in, and then we'll go to Ali to lay out the broad strokes of the issues that have been raised, and then we're going to jump right into the mapping discussion. So, Michael?
Yep, certainly. I'm going to be really quick. Okay, so as you said, we've received over 12,458, and it's still coming in. Since last Thursday's vote, we've received 286 items of testimony that generally fall into just 4 categories. I know that everybody, and throughout this entire process, commissioners have had access to all the testimony that we've received and have been discussed. It's been consistently updated. I will very briefly go over these 4 areas that were mentioned most in the past week, and that was districts 2 and 3. There was a couple of hundred submissions, or over 100 submissions, asking that the boundary of Greenwich Village be 5th Avenue, not 6th Avenue. They didn't specify from which district. In District 24, we've had significant testimony prior from the Jewish communities in 24 wanting to unify Kew Garden Hills, Fresh Meadows, Hillcrest, and Jamaica Estates. And 47, down in Brooklyn, we've had testimony since last week, approximately 2025, asking for different boundaries, specifically that the 47 should be the Belt Parkway to the boardwalk, from West 12th to Coney Island Avenue, and should include the neighborhoods within. And lastly, the last major piece that we've had over the past week has been testimony from District 30, where Glendale, we had taken part of East Glendale and changed it from Glendale, and it was from residents who wished that Glendale would remain whole within District 30.
John here, if I can add an addendum. Michael and Julia, they're being modest. They're trying to keep up with the volume, and there has been a bump up of input from the public just in the last week. I mean, I could tell you within the last 15 minutes before I got on this public meeting, we're getting a lot of emails coming in from Southern Brooklyn, a lot of the districts in the 40s, 47th, 44th, from the Orthodox Jewish communities, in the Russian and Ukrainian communities in Southern Brooklyn, and a few other districts that are dribbling in. And as fast as they're coming to me, I'm forwarding them to Michael so that he can log them in. All of this information, just for information, Michael is the records officer for the agency, so he keeps tabs on every single piece of information or map submission that comes to the commission. So I can, just as early as maybe half an hour ago, I keep checking my email to make sure that we are logging in. So we're maybe just a little behind, but in general terms, I can tell you we're getting a lot now of testimonial information being submitted from Southern Brooklyn, and maybe a little bit from going further north there.
Cool. So, John, I just want to say one thing. I would not allow you to say you're a little bit behind, because you've been processing them as quickly as they come in. And I think just the indication of what Michael just said and what you just said, as soon as we get them, you review it and you log it, and then it gets inputted. So again, my compliments to the entire staff. All right, so I want to adhere to our timeline, is making sure we get much input, but I think it's important from a process point for Grace just to give us an overview of the remaining part of the process, so we all are on the same page, and if there are questions, but also the public has that input as far as the ideal next step. So Grace, I'll turn it over to you.
I was on mute, sorry. So I just wanted to go over again the remaining process for mapping from this point on as set forth in the charter. So the point we're at now is where the commission must submit a plan to city council. And hopefully we'll get to a point where there's consensus and there's a vote to do that. Once the commission votes to submit a plan to city council, that triggers a 3-week period for council to consider the map. So within this 3 weeks, if council decides to object, they will object within that 3-week period by passing a resolution and a statement of objections. If they don't do that within 3 weeks, meaning they don't pass a resolution and a statement of objections, then the plan that was submitted to council will be deemed adopted as a final plan. So if the council does object within the 3-week period, then what are the remaining steps? The commission then has to take those objections into consideration, and may or may not incorporate those objections into the plan, and they will have an updated plan that they will then submit to the public. And the public will have time to inspect and comment on it, and the commission must hold another round of public hearings on this plan. Then, once the public hearings are over, the commission will then consider the comments and the public testimony again on the updated plan, and then they will take those into consideration. We'll have another set of sessions, and then that map will be the final plan that the commission will agree to submit to council, and then that is filed with the city clerk. So that would be the final plan. And under the charter, timeframes that are set forth, there are a few timeframes. That timeframe is for approximately early December.
Thank you, Grace. And we've had additional commissioners join us. Joseph, would you be kind enough so people know the additional commissioners who've joined us? see Judge Go. I know that.
Yes, so Judge Marilyn Go has joined us, and if I'm not mistaken, just thought I saw him.
Is that it right now?
It's it for right now.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's start jumping into the issue. So Ali, I mean, if you can really briefly, 'cause I really want to open it up to the commissioners for the dialogue, and I know we have a lot of points that have been raised. So can you just give a real quick thumbnail overview of the issues? And then commissioners, the floor will be yours.
Definitely. So at the direction of the chairman, we reached out to commission members with their support to have all objections identified for the mapping session. I'll provide an overview of those areas that commissioners identified for this discussion. First, we have 2 citywide issues and then a few borough-specific issues. For citywide issues, the 5% population deviation was identified specifically within the context of the Staten Island-Brooklyn crossover. We had multiple requests to revisit Staten Island and the proposed crossover into Brooklyn. We also received additional feedback from those concerned with the impact that the crossover would have on Brooklyn residents, as well as representation for Staten Island. Additionally, we also received concerns regarding the impact of making Staten Island's 3 council districts whole and the effect that that would have on the voting power of communities in other parts of the city, namely Brooklyn, due to the 5% deviation law. We also received multiple concerns regarding Hispanic representation, and that applies to council districts 2, 7, and 8. In council district 2, there was a concern regarding the Vladeck houses, which in the current 2013 maps are in council district 2, and the rejected revised map was moved into council district 1. As well, for council district 2, there was a concern about or a request to re-examine the addition of the West Village into council district 2. For district 7, there have been multiple requests to take a look at the northern boundary of council district 6 and the southern boundary of council district 7, and the impact that that boundary's positioning has on the Latino VAP in council district 7. And in district 8, there was a request, there were multiple requests once again, to take a look at the positioning of that district between the Bronx and Manhattan. Going into borough-specific issues, just starting at Manhattan, there was a request to examine the map in Council District 2 once again. This in relation to the impact on the East Midtown Plaza development and the boundary between Council District 2 and Council District 4 on 24th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenue in the rejected revised map. We also fielded an inquiry to look at Koreatown, the area that is currently located in Council District 4 under the 2013 maps, and that is potentially being moved into Council District 3 and the revised rejected maps. And finally, for Manhattan, we have the boundary between District 6 and 7, which was mentioned as part of Hispanic representation as well. Moving to the Bronx, we have one request to look at District 16 and 17, specifically Crotona Park South, and whether this location should be placed in Council District 16 or 17. It's currently in Council District 16 under the 2013 map. The rejected revised map places it into Council District 17. We also have one request to take a look at Queens. As Mike mentioned during his testimony summary, there has been interest regarding the boundaries of districts 23 and 24 and the impact that those boundaries have on the Jewish and Asian communities in Eastern Queens. Then finally moving to Brooklyn, in District 39, we have a request to revisit the boundaries of the Kensington community in Brooklyn and to determine how to best serve this community. We've received testimony calling for all of Kensington to be placed into Council District 39. We have also received testimony supporting the portions of Kensington remain in Council Districts 40 and 45. Moving on to District 43, there has been a desire to understand how starting from the revised rejected maps, where Council District 43, there's a request to see if we can increase the Asian VAP from that benchmark. And then finally, in District 47, there was a concern expressed from a commissioner regarding the Russian community in Council District 47 and how the voting power of this population might be impacted under the rejected revised plan. And then just kind of one miscellaneous thing that was put out there as well, that doesn't fall neatly into these two buckets. There was a request to consider zoning districts in this process as they are constantly changing and being upzoned and downzoned. And that is the summary of issues that we've received. And with that, I'll turn it back to the chair and commissioners.
Thank you very much, sir, and much appreciated.
Mr. Chair?
Hold on, I'm going to get to you because I know, hold on one second. I appreciate this summary, and I know there are other issues that may not have been inputted at that point, but around Glendale that came up earlier in the discussion as well. Commissioner Rizal, let's go.
Thank
from
you,
there.
Mr. Chair. Ali, I appreciate the detailed summary. I just want to say that, and I've raised this with the staff and with all the commissioners, that if there are other issues that were not detailed in the summary, I don't think we should be restricted from raising them. I think it would be appropriate to raise them when we cover each one of the boroughs. And I certainly am, and I would invite, the other commissioners to do so as well. Thank you.
And I appreciate that. As I indicated earlier, we will not have any thumbs on scale at this point, and whatever people want to raise as far as an issue of a borough or a district, that is obviously the way we've always operated, and we will continue to operate that way. So what is the preference of the commissioners as far as where do we start with, I think, a very good foundation of challenges that we have before us? Would we like to start with Staten Island, Brooklyn, or go into a particular borough? I defer to the commissioners for your input as far as where to start, or the staff.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Yes, Monsignor.
I go back and I heard John's and I don't dispute at all the analysis that at the moment we have the 5% deviation rule. I do raise the question that I think the commission should consider recommending to the city council that it asks from Albany that there be a home rule legislation that would permit us to follow the city charter of 10%, because so much of what we've been limited by, as John pointed out, was that deviation. Now, again, I just raised that as an option that before the commission, it may not go anyplace, but that certainly, I think, would permit us the option of doing some of those things, which I felt we were forced to do by the 5% deviation, which didn't allow us to meet some of the other criteria.
Thank you, Monsignor. I know you've raised that before as well. Right. And one of the things I guess I have not really shared, I reached out to folks in Albany, and obviously they're out of session right now. And they had been indicated very clearly that they did not really plan to get back in session, but that's not to say your suggestion is something we shouldn't look at. And I know Commissioner Rizal at our first meeting, I remember, raised a discussion around 10% versus 5% and the limitations. And, as a result of that, I know our folks have been in communication with the law department from the city of New York around 10% but 5 versus 5%. And we have been, as John indicated, as you just indicated, within that bandwidth of 5%. So no, duly noted and will be recorded appropriately, sir. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
So how would you like to start as far as tackling these issues? And again, I throw it open to the commissioners on how you want to proceed.
Mr. Chairman, it's Mark.
I know who you are, sir.
Commissioner Schnall and I have discussed some modifications from regarding Staten Island that we'd like to share with the other commissioners. So
I would look forward to it.
Michael, are you okay with moving ahead with those?
Sure, let's do it. Do you want me to show? Oh, you know
what? Let's. I thought we could do the 50-51.
Yeah, let's do that first.
Move. So when we drew the lines between 50 and 51, we we isolated a small section of Richmond Town that is neatly nestled below Clark Avenue. So if you can kind of bring up, there are, I guess there are 2 cemeteries there.
Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah, near where it says Great Kills. See
Right
Great
here,
Kills?
correct?
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
right in there. There's a
Mhm.
nice nestled residential community that both Michael and I think are more properly aligned into Richmond Town. They're now kind of isolated. Clark Avenue is a lot of commercial activity there, right, Michael?
Not there.
No, but I'm
But-
just saying you got the commercial strip and then you've got the residential that's kind of sitting there all by itself. So,
Yeah,
so
well, it doesn't make sense that they're not attached to the rest of Richmond
So
Town.
our suggestion is if Fabian, you can, go to Arthur Kill Road, bring, basically use the boundaries of the cemeteries. And,
Right.
and then they come over to Amboy, and just to capture that residential area that's sitting in there.
So great, y'all can hear me, right? I was muted for a second. So this is the first area I grabbed right here. This is part of this location we're talking about. Now you'll notice there's probably houses on the east side of the street as well.
Yeah,
coming down
that's
Correct?
why Michael and I are recommending we also include
Yes,
the
there you go.
cemetery.
Right. So
Grab
I would
all
include the
that.
cemetery. I just wanted to explain grabbing the cemetery as well. And then this is a block here. This is Amboy right here.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Now, what
that's
we
good.
don't want to do is capture the homes on the other side of the cemeteries.
right
that
here.
Or no, that's the cemetery. That's
Okay.
not residential.
Okay, so I can include that.
I think this is exactly what, Mark, I think you got it all.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
The other
Okay.
side of Arthur Kill Road should stay in 51. And that's it. That's
Yeah, this is
the
it.
adjustment to 50
That's
to
it.
51.
So the only
Okay.
population is really in that residential area that's kind of nestled between the cemeteries.
All right, so just this block here, you see, here's Arthur Kill.
Yep.
And this is, I believe, Amboy right here.
Yep.
And so we're grabbing just this block, which is the cemeteries and everything that is kind of north of the cemeteries in these residential areas, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
And I'm moving that into 50 from 51, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, it reunites basically. It says Great Kills, but it's really more Richmond Town.
Sure. So there we go. I went ahead and added that in.
Yeah.
Our deviations are still okay.
Mhm.
So that doesn't really affect the deviations overall. Deviations are okay.
Okay.
And then moving north to the
Hey,
westerly.
Mark,
Yes.
can I just interrupt you for 1 second? Because when I
Yes,
heard
sir.
Fabian say our deviations remain the same, our deviations remain the same based on 2013 or what we did not approve. So we have a common understanding of what we're talking about.
Sure. When I say the deviations remain okay, and thank you for bringing that up. What I'm referring to is our overall 5% goal.
Yep.
We're
I know
still
that.
within the 5% goal if we make that change. And I will alert commission if we make a change that puts us outside of that 5%. I'll alert the commissioners as to what that has done, and that way we can make adjustments to get back within the 5% goal.
Thank you, Mark. I just wanted to make sure we clarified.
If we can move north to the 49-50 boundary.
Sure.
To the westerly Castleton Corners community.
Is that up in here?
So so let me give background on this. So Joe and I attended a Westerly Civic Association meeting last week, and I want to reunite the area that we carved out from Manor Road to the edge of the park back into 50.
This area here, correct?
Right. That's technically Sunnyside, but it really is, they consider it part of the catchment area of the Civic Association. So we should bring the line to the edge of the park down to what I think is Victory.
Yeah, Victory.
Right.
Let me find Victory on the map so we can make sure we get it correct.
Yeah, Victory is the boundary that runs along the southern part of the park. But we're going to keep the Clove Lake Parks in District 49.
Got it.
If you could just, Fabian, just
There you go.
if you could just pay some special attention, there's some homes that may track as like being kind of like right on top of the park. And so we want to make sure that we get them as well.
So yeah, so let me kind of show you. Yeah, thank you. So this is the area we're talking about. This is Victory here, and this is the parks
Right.
boundary. So this is the area I'll be moving into 50, and there's one block here. This is south of Forest Avenue.
Yep.
This block, you'll see when I select it, actually does include part of the park. That's all one census block. So we can't split the census block on Brookside Avenue. We would have to go and grab this portion of the park as well into District 50. Let me zoom out so you can see it better.
Yeah, no, we had this problem last time. And you said that there is a process to get that bifurcated if we had to.
I don't really recommend it. It's the reason is we're talking about, we don't know how many population are in each. And when we split something like that, we don't know what we're actually doing because we don't know where the people are counted.
Okay.
The census just says, here's a number. And that's all we really have to go off of, especially after they did the adjustment.
It's so weird because it's like, you know, the residents who live along there, I mean, their backyards don't extend that far into the park.
Yeah, I'm fine with it because there's no real, the park over there is just natural area, probably a walking path there too. So it's not something that's going to necessitate capital investment from the council member per se. So I think it's fine.
Okay. This is a creek right here. This kind of little line here is a creek. And then this right here, let me zoom in, sorry, it looks like it's called Martling Avenue.
Yeah,
That's
Martling.
Right. And this
Yeah,
is, like
so
this blue line is a creek.
Yeah, so so that area is a steep slope part of the park. It has some walking paths. I think Saturn Playground is right outside of that area. That'll still remain in 49. I think this is fine. I'm not too worried about it.
So I'll go ahead and move this into 50 then.
Correct.
Yes.
So what's the population in that? Can you just tell me what the population number was of that change?
So this specific area here, it is 2,700 people, 2,744. So
okay, so we have a plan to add 2,744 to 40.
Yeah, you got to get some population back into 49. So
let me show you where
deviation 49 is a little low, so we need to add some. Yes.
So let me show you where we want to do that. So that where you have the Toad Hill houses, if you go down to that blue block, I want you to go a little west along the expressway and Westwood Avenue.
This way?
Yeah, that's good. Grab those like 6 blocks. I think that should probably grab most of the 2,700.
To which?
I can't, can you zoom in a little tighter?
Certainly. So we have Gower, seems like Melba, Mountain View, Gainsvort.
Hold on, I'm looking at my own map. I'm gonna say it goes to 1 block past Roosevelt Ave. So I think it's Buchanan.
Okay.
You see Buchanan? Yeah, it's a little bit of a strange thing. And grab the block west of Roosevelt. So go down a little bit right there. Yes, grab that. And then go up to Suffolk. Go Suffolk to the east.
To the east, Suffolk.
Yeah, so see Suffolk. There you go.
Like
perfect.
this.
Is that 2,700?
That is, yeah, roughly 2,700, and will put us back within our total deviation of 5%.
All right.
And would you want me to grab this, split the highway, or do you want me to leave the highway and just keep it going down? Because there might be houses on the other side of Gannon. I didn't know if you want those.
So that is a good question. In my proposed map, I grabbed North and South Gannon. If you could do that and see what the increase of population is.
So
I would do Gannon to Bradley. See where Bradley runs perpendicular?
Right here. So this block right here. We're still at, I don't think there was much population, if anything, in there. So we're still at 2,700.
Right. And I would, I think that's fine. Without Mark, is that good?
Looks good so far.
Okay.
So this is Gannon North here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab. I realized you said North and South Gannon. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
shuffle
I,
that up.
I don't know. No, I don't know if you need to grab North Gannon. I sort of feel like they should probably be part of
Okay,
the
but I can take that
westerly
off.
capture. Yeah,
Not a problem. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure I'm doing exactly what you need here. So that does not grab North Gannon. It grabs
right.
South
So it
Gannon.
just grabs the southern part of the expressway.
Right. Does this sound good right here? I'll move this into 49.
Yeah, Mark, you good?
Yeah, what is that step? Right
Yeah,
there?
this right here,
That's
this
it.
is the block. You can see it comes way out.
Oh, okay,
So I
Yeah,
just
there's
left it
no.
as a
I don't
cleaner
think there's
line.
any houses. That's the on ramp and off ramp
okay,
for Bradley Avenue.
all right.
So before you go on, what's the breakdown of what's been lost and what's been gained in these trade-offs of areas as far as?
So that we
Mhm.
lost about 2,700 from 49 to 50, and now we're adding about 2,700 back in from 50 to 49. So it's going to be roughly an even population swap between 49 and 50. This area we're adding right here,
Mhm.
it's
It
I
was
would-
part of the original 2013 map.
yeah. Let me turn on.
I just want
Yes.
to know, is it changing the demographics?
Thanks, Moff. That's what I'm
Yeah.
asking as
So
well.
I was going to get to that part next. So this is actually, you can see this is the old line. So it is portion of that. Now I want to show you the kind of area. First, this northern area we just grabbed, you can see it's majority white, plurality right at least. You can see it's this grayer color is the white population. All this, there's one block here that looks like it's plurality Hispanic, but it's just one block. I'm not even sure if it's a heavy population block, but there's one. Down in this area, we're grabbing this new area we're grabbing. You can see there are some Asian populations. That's this green color. The darker the green, obviously, the more heavily Asian plurality it is. And you can see there's a lot of gray in here is the non-Hispanic white population. So that's the area we're grabbing. So I would say, yes, it's slightly more Asian. The trade-off is slightly more Asian population is being put into 49.
Michael and I think that this swap would enhance 49 as a coalition district.
Mhm.
So that's why we're making this recommendation.
Mhm. Okay, keep going. Hey, Mark.
So should I go ahead and add that population into to 50?
Please.
Sorry, to 49. Sorry, to 49. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're back. Our total deviation is still okay. 5%. We're still within the margins there. So, and we've added again, we added this area here, westerly, back into 50. Then we added this area south of Gannon, I believe it was, into 49.
Okay.
And Fabian, is there any way to compare the old VAP and CVAP to the new VAP and CVAP specifically for District 49 for Black, Hispanic, and Asian populations?
Very important.
Okay, so 49 was, I'll go ahead and read these off. 25.21% Black, 11.46% Asian, and 30.08% Hispanic. Those are VAP numbers. I'm going to go ahead and make the changes again, and then I'll read those numbers, same numbers off again for 49.
Do you have CVAP handy, or would that be?
Give me a second, I'll undo these changes and I'll get you CVAP as well.
Sure, thank you.
Fabian, I also have the data tables up if that's easier.
It is, if you have them.
Yep.
So CVAP, I'll read these off. Well, I can just read them off, but for next time, Brent, I'll
Yeah,
keep that in
next
mind.
time.
So CVAP, citizen voting age population, Black is 25.91%. Asian is 7.96%, and Hispanic is 25.9%. Now I'm going to make the changes, and then I'll read those off again, both VAP and CVAP.
Thank you.
Okay, so after making those changes, VAP, Black is 25.32, Asian is 11.87, and Hispanic is 30.17. CVAP, Black is 25.96. Asian is 8.44. Hispanic is 25.99. So it went up slightly in all of those metrics.
Great, thank you.
And Fabian, what's the new deviation for 49?
It is 2.43% under, or 4,200 people.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mark, or Mike, whichever way.
I'm all good.
Yeah,
That was it?
Yeah,
And,
this is Staten
yeah.
Island.
Staten Island's done. Just get rid of the part of Brooklyn and we're all set.
Well, yeah, okay.
I had
Nice
to say-
try. It took, hey, Michael, it took you a record amount of time. So I'm very impressed with you.
I did. I've been biting my tongue for 57 minutes. Just
Your discipline has been amazing. Okay, so that's Staten Island. And
all right.
are there any other remarks to what has been proposed as far as the Staten Island component, aside from Michael Schnall's remark at the end? If not, let's swing to, do we want to tackle Brooklyn or do we want to go to Manhattan?
Yeah, let's start with Manhattan. I can, since I need to log out at some point, if we take a little longer, I would prefer to go over Manhattan.
I am
concerns first.
fine. I mean, again, no thumb on
If
the
everybody's
scale.
fine with it. And I would like to congratulate Mark and Mike for their work that they did ahead, and very organized, very clear with what you did for Staten Island.
Sure.
It's not gonna be that clear for me, but I'll try. So yesterday I raised my concerns about district second and the second district, and last night when I sent the email, I said that there was an issue with heavy Latino population at the Vladek houses, and to cancel District 1 and to keep it in Council District 2, but I recognize now that there is also heavy Latino population in District 1. So currently the Vladek houses are split between Council Member Christopher Marte and Carlina Rivera. And I believe that they have both submitted testimony, and correct me if I'm wrong, to unify the Vladek houses in their districts. So that's one issue. They both want the Vladek houses in their districts, either the one or the second. So we have to decide in which one we're going to keep them. They're both heavy Latino districts, and we have representation in both. The other testimony that I submitted in regard to the second district was about state, where there is a strong Latino population.
Maria, you broke off at that one point when you were leading into that. So can you go back to the second part of what you were saying? Could you slightly broke off?
Okay, so the second point that I brought up, if you want, we can go with the first point, which is the Vladek houses. Let's just go step by step.
So if I can, then with your permission, hey, Michael, can you just, as Maria indicated, I remember we talked about this in our prior mapping sessions as well. Can you just to reinforce what Maria just said, remind us of the testimony from the respective elected officials?
Certainly. Vladek houses were there was a carve out that went south previously in the current iteration of maps 2013, pardon my dog. Right there, where the Vladek houses were in 2. There was testimony from Councilmember Marte from 1 requesting that Vladek be returned to 1. Excuse me, one moment.
That sounds like a big dog.
Nope, my golden's the bell rang. Sorry about that. Anyway, so there was a request to keep them in one. As you can see in the map, how Vladeck is kind of aligned with the other houses that are there. And in order to deliver more efficient services, Councilmember Marte suggested that Vladeck be part of that continuous group of housing. Additionally, he's talked about there being a natural barrier, being the Williamsburg Bridge and the Delancey. Hold on. So anyway, the other testimony was just that from Councilmember Rivera was that Vladeck had been a part of 2 and she would like it to remain there.
You're muted, Chair.
Thanks. I thought I had a dog, that's why. Commissioner Mateo, if you want to go back, I just wanted to have that as a reminder, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So I was wondering, we would keep the Vladeck houses, if we do decide to keep the Vladeck houses into one or the other district, that the Latino population can be made up by doing other things like removing a portion of the West Village from District 2nd and splitting, this is an idea, and splitting it into District 1 and 3.
So I turned on the voting age population, again, the filter, again, just to remind people, the colorations you see, it goes from light to dark. Green is Asian, purple is Hispanic, and blue is Black. So the lighter it is, so you can see these lighter are plurality Hispanic, but they're closer, like maybe 30%, versus these dark purple ones might be 50, 60% plurality or majority Hispanic. That's kind of what you're seeing here when you look at these colorations. Basically, think of it as the darker, the more dense or more percentage of population of that particular plurality ethnicity there is. So when looking at the map, and let me turn off the old council districts just to make this a little easier to see. The recommendation is moving the Vladeck houses here into 2, and then trying to find a Hispanic population from 2 to move into 1. Is that what I'm hearing?
That could be a solution, yes.
So if I look at the border between 2 and 1, this is the border right here between 2 and 1. You can see there's no real Hispanic population to grab from 2 other than the border where we'd be grabbing to Vladeck houses. So we could grab a section of this area here to move to 1 if you were trying to swap out Hispanic population. That is an area we could do that. There is one NYCHA development there, I believe, Gompers. So we would most likely have to move Gompers into 1 in order to make, to pull this population out. But that's just looking at, that's only if you want to move Hispanic population out of 2 to 1. If you wanted to move other population, obviously we could move the line in other locations and grab other populations.
Okay, I have an alternative as well, if anybody else has
Go ahead, Commissioner.
another suggestion. And it's in regarding to Kips Bay, which also has a strong Latino population. And if we trade Kips Bay into District 2, and we removed the West Village portion of the District 2, I think that will also satisfy the preservation of the Latino empowerment.
So Kips Bay, are you speaking about this area by the hospital over here, this part of Kips Bay?
Yes.
Okay, so basically this section here, you can see the purple, like again, that's the heavy Hispanic area.
Correct.
So adding this section into 2, correct?
Yes.
It's in 4 right now?
In this version of the drawing, it's in 4.
Okay.
You see this green line designates the border between
right.
What drawn as 2 and 4.
And just, sorry, this is Commissioner Kirschenbaum. Apologies for everybody being late. I do believe that I'm blanking on the name, of those. I think that's a NYCHA development there, the purple we're looking at. I do believe that's currently into. I think it is.
Yes, you can see this is the current lines. This
Yeah.
is a NYCHA development here, Strauss.
Strauss, yeah.
This doesn't appear to be a NYCHA development. It might be, but it's not recognized as one on my map.
Okay, it might not be
Strauss is
NYCHA, but yeah, it is a Hispanic population there. I don't know if that offsets, then I don't know if there's a way that it's got to come further south, that 2 has to come further south. I know, again, I think population wise, one of the things with the lines was that it was hard to keep Murray Hill fully whole. I think, if I recall correctly, when we did the Manhattan maps. But Marie, I do think that's a way to also take a look at this. I don't know if we have to change 2's northern border there for population purposes, but it's something to look at.
So this area here, this is kind of coming to 28th Street right here, which is, you can see the Hispanic population resides basically south of 28th Street. This little block that I've highlighted here, this is 4,300 people. So if we moved this 4,300 into 2, we would need to then remove 4,300 out of 2 or around there. It doesn't have to be exact, obviously. We have a little bit of play. So you'd have to take something out of 2 and potentially into 4 or into 3 and then 3 into 4 or what have you. But we would have to take some population out of 2 if we put this into 2. So we could, if you want to know this block here, again, 4,300 people. This block is, it looks like 17% Hispanic VAP and 16.5% Hispanic CVAP. This little area here.
But it is going out of 4. So
yes, it would come out of 4.
Yeah, for us to get back similar amount, you know.
Yeah, we'd have to pull, like again, we'd have to pull 4,300 out of 2, and it would either go to 3, and then 3 would give some to 4, or somewhere we'd have to get it back into 4 through some roundabout way, either directly or through another district.
Commissioner Mateo?
And it will definitely preserve the Latino vote in this district. So I think that I would like to move forward with that.
So what are the moves connected to that then, with the movement out and the movement in, and also what you're indicating around Vladeck itself?
So I haven't done anything with Vladeck. That's just this part.
No, I know. No, I was just adding the Vladeck, picking up on the commissioner's
Understood.
earlier point. That's all. Just trying to put it all together.
Well, I'm assuming we have to keep the Vladeck houses into one or the other. So we should basically decide that first, which is going to be the move. If we keep it on District 1, then we have to put some Latino population into this District 2.
So if I can give you kind of an understanding, if I were to, for instance, follow the current district lines. So just grabbing the population in the current, following the current district, you can see this is District 2, I think. Just following that. That block of people here is about 5,400 people. And it is roughly 17.28% Hispanic VAP and 16.75% Hispanic CVAP. That's this area here. So if this is 5,400 people again, so if we moved this into 2, we'd have to remove 5,400 people, would have to come back into 1 or something of that nature. It doesn't have to be exactly 5,400. Obviously, we'd have to move a chunk of people into 1 in order to make up the population balance.
How about removing the West Village portion, which is not Latino?
So if we were to take this West Village near New York University and put that into 1, correct? Or are you talking the east? No, this is East Village, so that wouldn't be right. So you're talking this area up here, correct? Let me turn off the current lines again so you can see this.
I think that if we put it in the first district, it will dilute also the Latino community. So West
yeah,
Village, I wouldn't like West Village to be on the first or the second district.
So yeah, anything we take out of this area is, if we take it out of 2, it's going to make 2 more Hispanic. If we put it in 1, it's going to make 1 less Hispanic, because this is a not Hispanic area. So it looks like non-Hispanic white for the most part plurality. So it's not going to positively impact whatever it goes into. It won't positively impact the Hispanic VAT.
Correct. Is there a way where we can put the West Village somewhere else that is not the first or the second district?
Sure, you could put it into 3, and then instead of 3, you'd have to take some of 3, the southern portion of 3 into 1, or something of that. Those are also an options.
Yeah, splitting it between, splitting it between 1 and 3.
Correct me if I'm wrong, won't that then have an impact on the northern side of 3 with the Hell's Kitchen issue?
It depends on how it's done. I wouldn't know. Basically, if we tried to find a 5,400 person swap between 3, 2, and 1, we wouldn't have to touch any of the northern border. We would basically take 5,400 out of 3 into 1, 5,400 out of 2 into 3, and then the 5,400 out of 1 into 2. So we wouldn't have to touch the northern border if we did that. The Hell's Kitchen area, we wouldn't touch that area, but it would be moving populations in this southern area between these 3 districts. That's one way you could do it and not have to touch that.
I like that way.
And wasn't there testimony that someone brought up today about moving the boundary in the West Village from 6th to 5th Ave? So we could move that border over.
So I guess, do you want me to start by moving these Vladeck houses following the current district lines? Do you want this to be a different line? Start with that. Let me grab these blocks here to make this clean. So this is the current district lines. Did you want to grab this area here as well? Grab this area down here? What would you like for the Vladeck houses? Or do you want to just cut this area just like this?
I think just like that, it's fine.
All right, so we can always, and I've said this before, and I want to reiterate, we make changes, we can always undo these changes. We can always go back. So if we get down the rabbit hole and you don't like it, just tell me, hey, go back, and we can go back and undo stuff. So I'll go ahead and move this for now, this 5,400 into 2. Is that what we're doing, correct?
Yeah.
So before I do that, let me just state.
I mean, look, we can take a look at it, but I just want to make clear. Councilman Marte has also clearly been on the record saying that Vladeck houses in CD1 is important. So I want to just make sure that we're actually taking a look at this from a very holistic view. These are conversations that we've had repeatedly. And I really just want to make sure that we're going to be changing all this around, and there is a gigantic ripple effect that's going to happen in the northern districts here. So we can take a look at this. I understand that that's what we're doing, but let's also take a look at everything, how it's going to then ripple effect, because we make this change here, it's going to affect 2, 3, 4, which then trickles all the way up to northern Manhattan as well. So, we need to be very cognizant of what we're doing here.
Absolutely, Commissioner Kirschenbaum. Thank you for that. And this is Commissioner Collado. I was actually born in the Lillian Walled houses right up on the other side of the Williamsburg Bridge, and I tend to agree that the Williamsburg Bridge serves as a very, a natural border between the 2 districts. So it really does make more sense for the Vladeck houses to be in District 1. And unfortunately, I do have a hard stop right now at 6:15, so I will be logging off. But I do look forward to continuing these discussions tomorrow.
If I remember correctly from our prior meetings, the bridge was part of the discussion with the line of demarcation, basically, as far as the houses are concerned. And so I just want to go back to Commissioner Mateo and say, with that former discussion and with now the reconciliation of that and the potential of the domino effect. So if we can just play that out, and I want to just hear your thoughts about that as well.
Well, I do recognize that council member Martha has voiced his opinion about keeping the Vladeck houses in District 1. And we have Carlina Rivera, who's also voiced her opinion about keeping the Vladeck houses in District 2. If we do decide to go with commission with Marte, then we have to do a trade-off for the second district. And I think that is what I just explained by removing the West Village from the District 2nd and splitting it between the 1 and the 3, we can keep the Vladeck houses on District 1. If the
Okay.
numbers work. So I would agree with keeping it in District 1 as long as the second district is not affected. And we can make up that Latino population in District 2nd.
And I'm sorry, and the last part you said was to make up that in district,
Latino population for the second district.
second district. Okay, I thought
Is
I,
there
Yes.
a number or percentage goal you have in the second district for the Hispanic population? That might help me better understand where the best places to move populations would be. Currently, the way it's drawn, the second district is 16.26% Hispanic CVAP, and it is 16.73% Hispanic VAP. Bryn, can you give us the numbers for the current 2013 lines second district, please?
Yep. So the second district Hispanic CVAP is 18%, 17.8%. Let me just pull
That's
up.
the evaporate.
That's CVAP. Give me one second, and I will pull up the VAP. And then the VAP is 18.3%.
Okay, so it went down 2% in both. If we can maintain it at the current.
Did that go down? We didn't pull that area around 28th Street yet, did we?
No.
But if you
No.
pull that area around 28th Street, you're going to add you're going to pull some of the Hispanic population out of 4 into 2, aren't you?
Yes, and then we'd have to likely take some out of 2 into 4. The likely area we would take it out would be up here, and this is less Hispanic, so it would probably increase it. I can say I don't know that it's going to increase it 2%.
Do you want to just try it quickly, Fabian?
Yeah,
Just to
it's
show?
probably going to increase it a 0.1 or 0.2%, but yeah, I can, if you'd like.
If it's 2%, the problem is solved.
Right, so if you'd like, I can move this section first, south of 28th Street and Kips into 2. I'll start there, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And then we'll move a portion out of 2 into 4.
Would you just tell us what?
I think.
Tell us what the northern lines there are.
Sure, let me give you that. So this right here is 34th Street.
Right.
And then this right here is 32nd Street.
Just go all the way, see what happens if you just square that off. No, the other, you need to take out, right?
Right,
Yeah.
so I'm taking this out of 2 into 4. That would be squaring this off.
But isn't that taking some Hispanic population out, that little purple?
So if I do
Yeah.
this instead,
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment? I think Michael D made a comment that we got. I think it was Michael D made a comment that we gotten some comments about Koreatown, which, if is kind of right there. Was there some details about, you're talking about 32nd, 31st Street around 5th and that area? Is that Is that relevant in this area if we're gonna adjust boundaries? How that, how this impacts that request?
I think Koreatown is a little further west.
Yeah, I think it's more of the Broadway.
Well, you know what, if we have something from the business and the representatives, defining what they think it is, it might be helpful. But yes, it's between like 5th, 6th, 7th Avenue, 32nd, 31st Street. But I'd certainly be interested in what they are defining, because that might make something easy for us to swap into, from, I guess it was, I don't know if it's, to put back in a particular district to benefit this discussion.
So that since this correlates, if Michael can just hop on 1 second and then give us, if there are more specifics connected to that, picking up on Mark's point.
Yeah, you know what? I don't have specific testimony about Koreatown. I think Ali mentioned that as one of the points of that they wanted to focus on, or that was raised during the discussions with commissioners. So if Ali has further.
Sorry, Ali, if you've got some.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have testimony from Councilmember Powers that has come in, and he is calling out Koreatown as between 32nd and 34th Streets, between 5th Avenue and Broadway, and asking that, quote, this important piece of Council District 4 be reintegrated into the final maps, along with Carnegie Hall and the Empire State Building, actually.
This is 5th Avenue here. Let me turn this off just so you can see a little better. This is 5th Avenue here, and this is Broadway. And then you said, what were the two streets? Was it 32nd?
Right, between 32nd and 34th.
So that would be basically 32nd, 34th, between 5th Avenue and Broadway. That would be this area right here. And if I turn on the block, you can see.
That could be, we're kind of playing a merry-go-round here between 2, 3, and and 1, and this might be the a potential trade, and 4. So this might, everybody's got to trade some blocks here and there, and so there may be some benefit in doing that.
So is the goal, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is the goal then to have this, I think you called it Koreatown area, in 4?
That's where it currently lives.
Okay, so the idea would be basically moving this line to 4 like this. So grabbing down Broadway to 32nd Street, over to, looks like this is Park, up a block to 31st. And then this is going down Lexington south again to 32nd, then across 32nd. So moving this into 4 is what we're talking, correct?
So let me, before we jump on the correct part, I know Commissioner Kirschenbaum also had some opinions around Koreatown as well, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, I mean, it's the same sentiment that I believe. Again, it was just sort of changing from 2 to 4 here, which is generally okay. But if we're talking about maybe doing this trading to offset the population issues, this might be the fix. I think this might line up in a way, as long as the numbers work well. To ensure that, again, everything lines up correctly.
Fine. So why don't we start that, Fabian?
Okay, I'll go ahead and move that into 4. So now we still have to rebalance. 2 is still a little overpopulated. So we have to take a little bit out of 2. And it can go into 4, 3, 1 is pretty much at the level it can be. But that we haven't moved anything from 1 into 2 or anything like that. I know there was talk about West Village. So
the West Village, yes. So,
so at the
splitting
moment,
it between District 1 and 3.
So at the moment, 2 is a little overpopulated. So we need to remove population. I'm gonna turn this off just so it's a little easier to see.
Did we add Kips Bay to District 2?
Yes, the Kips Bay section right here, underneath south of 32nd Street, we added 2.
All right.
So now we have
we
to
can remove the West Village from District 2nd a little bit and split it between the 1st and the 3rd districts.
So where would you like to move? The line is currently 6th Avenue. Where would you like to move that to?
Well, wasn't there, just really quick, sorry, Maria, wasn't there a conversation about maybe moving that line from 6th to 5th Avenue?
Yeah,
There
the
was some public
testimony was
testimony about
for,
that,
the
right?
testimony was for Fifth Avenue, correct?
Okay, and so I'm just gonna say this is 15th right here, and this is all in 5th of there. So the idea being grabbing 5th to Washington Square? Or am I moving 5th and then going past it through New York University all the way down?
I think it's 5th, like to the park, I believe.
Okay,
Yeah, well, I'm referencing a bit of what the current district line is, but that's just.
Yeah, Greg,
referencing
fifth runs right into the park. It stops at the park.
Yeah,
Right.
That's what I mean, not going around the park and then south of it, it's the park itself. the
got it.
cutoff.
So this block here, this is 5th Avenue, and this is Washington Square Park. This is Washington Square right here, this street here. So this is 6th, this green line. So we'd be grabbing this chunk here, south of 15th Street, between 5th and 6th, and moving this into 3, correct?
Correct.
That's, okay. So should I go ahead and make that move?
But how much is the population here?
That is 8,400 people.
So you have 54 there, 84 here.
We're gonna have to do a lot of rebalancing still, but if the goal is to first move populations on the testimony, I think it might be helpful to kind of get those testimony pieces done first and then go back and do the rebalancing.
Okay. Go ahead, Fabian.
Sure. Okay, so now that kind of takes care. So 2 now, between 3 and 2, we need to rebalance roughly 4%. So basically, we either need to take 4% out of 3 into 2, or we need to take 4% out of 3 into 1, and then 4% out of 1 into 2. Or we can go through the north and go up through 6 and 4 and all of those.
Well, that goes back to the point earlier about the domino effect.
Yeah,
right.
We're going to be bouncing.
And also I am not clear about the commissioner request. That change, what will be the demographic of 2? Is it?
So 2 now, the way it's drawn, it's underpopulated. So we would need to add. So any population number I give you now would not be correct because we still need to add roughly 4% to 2 in order to make the population.
Oh, just to complicate matters a little bit, just to add to the Latino population in 2, there is that Latino, I think majority, or at least heavily Latino area east of Stuyvesant Town to the river. From Avenue C on, as far as I could tell on my map here.
Judge, I think you're referring to Waterside Plaza.
Yes.
This area here?
No, I mean, that's a power plant, so.
Oh,
no, that's.
Okay, but Avenue C, that whole area?
Oh, you just.
Oh, Gregory, south, move south.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
south
that's it. Well, that's already in 2. South is already in 2. I'm just saying.
Yeah, this is the line between 2 and 4. You're talking about this area here?
Yes, yes.
This is 36 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have.
A very happy power plant worker.
That's the Con Ed
that's
power
Con
plant.
Ed.
So,
That's
yeah, I don't
Con
know
Ed's
what's showing
facility.
up there as population.
Maybe they have some staff that sleep there overnight, but it's the Con Ed facility.
All right. So then to achieve the goal, where are there people that fits the demographics that the commissioner is trying to reach and then adds population?
So population, if you want to add Hispanic population to 2, and if we're only looking at 3 and 1, we're leaving 4 alone for the moment. The Hispanic populations would be down in the Vladeck, or they would be over here in this northern part of, or southern part, sorry, of District 3. Those are the Hispanic areas closest to 2 that you can grab. There's a couple blocks over here you can help, but it's not 8,400 people. To get to the 84, basically, if we need to move 4% into 2, your best options would be down here or over here if you're looking for Hispanic population. If you're not caring about if it's Hispanic or not, and you're just trying to grab population, obviously the lines kind of go anywhere you'd like.
Well, we are trying to maintain the Hispanic population, and since we're keeping the bladder houses in district, in the first district, I would suggest going to the third district and try to grab some Latino population.
I just want to see
that
what this
area.
area here is. 1 second. This area, it looks like, is 15% Hispanic. You can see there's a couple purple blocks there. This is still using Delancey. This is still using Delancey as the border there. It's not moving past Delancey. So that is, then you also have this Hernandez and Lower East Side houses. If you remove those, you could probably get to, these are more Hispanic as well. You could probably get to your number that you need if you were to move those types
Which is
of
the
populations.
2%. So can we
Right.
try those numbers to see if we reach that 2%?
Sure, let me just see. This might be too much. I just want to kind of give us an idea of what we're looking at here. So put this into, sorry, 2. Yeah, so this would actually get to 2.48% over, which is still okay. Like I said, we're 2.5 is kind of our rough max at the moment. So we would, if we move this entire population here, we'd be okay. Now, what that would do to 2. So you guys have the 2 percentages we gave you before. I'm going to read off what 2 would look like if I did this change. Okay. So the Hispanic VAP would be 17.78%. And the Hispanic CVAP would be 17.6%. Again, this is Delancey here. And then the lines here, this is Rivington Street. And this is Forsyth Street going north-south. Forsyth to Rivington to Essex, and then down to Lancey. Adding that population in to 2 would be okay population deviation wise. And again, Hispanic VAP would then be 17.78, Hispanic CVAP 17.6 if I move this group of people in.
And Fabian, that's coming from
1,
1?
and then we would have to rebalance between 1 and 3.
I was going to say, then you have to do the rebalancing again. And
And
then,
also, what's that doing? Oh, I'm sorry, Chair.
no, after
What
you,
is
Greg.
that-
No,
what
Greg,
is
go
that
ahead, man.
doing to Council District 1's?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't know
You took the
until we
words
took
right
the
out of my
population out of
mouth. Yeah.
3. But I will say this, the most likely area to grab from 3 is the only border it shares. And this is a heavier Hispanic population in 3. So grabbing this Hispanic portion here into 1 might offset it. I don't know yet. Haven't done it, so I don't know. But
But
what
then
I
it would
can
take it away
say,
from 3 though, right, Fabian?
yeah, his 3 would lose Hispanic population into 1. What I can say, and I'll just kind of give this, so 1, the way it's drawn, not making this change. The way it's drawn, 1 is 12.9% Hispanic VAP and 13.37% Hispanic CVAP. That's what 1 is right now, the way we have everything drawn right now. Okay. So
And
I'm giving you
what
those
was it?
numbers in case we make changes. You want to know what it does.
What was it before?
Brand, do you have the 2013 numbers?
Yep, it was basically 1% lower on both of those. So the VAP in for the 2013 lines is 11.9% Hispanic, and the CVAP is 12.4%. And I also want to draw attention to the fact that District 3 actually has a higher Hispanic VAP and CVAP than District 1. Under the 2013 lines at 14% VAP, 14% CVAP, and under our preliminary plan, also around the same 15% VAP and 15.3% CVAP.
What's the Asian population in that area that you're thinking of putting into 2?
In this red area? In this area you have highlighted? Is that what the question was, the Asian population in this area?
Yes.
Sure.
And Fabian, while you're doing this, can you grab the block right below the Lower East Side infill houses? Because that's also a part of the houses, I think.
Let me double check. Make sure I'm grabbing the right block there. This here, correct.
Yeah.
So I'd probably just do this to grab the block correctly. Actually, I'll just leave it at that so we know exactly what we're talking about here. So doing this. Okay, so the Asian population in this, just this red area here, the Asian population is 23.1% Asian VAP. If we wanted to move this line to Delancey, by the way, and just do this whole line here, just take Delancey, this would be too much for 2, because then 2 would have to lose a little more in order to make it work population wise. And what I can say is if we did this to 2, we actually have to lose a block here. This would make it actually okay, because adding this into 2 would be too much population wise. But if we were to do it, we could then take some out of 2 in another place still. We could still go back to doing that, but it would be too much for 2. So it would be this area here, this red area, if I were to add this into 2. That would get 2 back to population, then we could rebalance between 3 and 1.
So then
And then
staying, go ahead, I'm sorry, Commissioner, after you.
The final numbers will be
For 2,
18.8. Yes, for 2. 18.8.
17.8, 17.8, and 17.6, VAP and CVAP.
It's not the same as before, but it's pretty close.
Well, if you round up, you're at 18. So you're right, Commissioner. It's
Yep.
just about there. And we have other areas that also fall within that band of 0.5, 1% in rounding. So then with 3 and 1.
Well, should I make this change before I go to 3 and 1? Should I make this change?
Greg, because you're Manhattan.
I mean, we can tentatively make that change, but we've got to look then as to how the population shifts between 3 and 1. I mean, I understand that multiple people want the attic houses, it seems. And I can understand why. I've worked with attic houses before over the years. That being said, there's all these ripples that are happening right now, and I'm concerned that this is going to, again, make this even more complicated. The council member for CV1, I think, has been on the record for a while talking about attic houses. And so we've heard testimony to that effect for a long time. So we have to just keep balancing this and see what happens now in the northern boundaries.
And just to give some historic perspective, when the first districting commission met in 1990 to create these 51 districts, it was a clear intention to create District 1 as an opportunity district to elect an Asian American candidate. District 2 was created with a goal and a principle to provide an opportunity to elect a Latino American candidate. And that was a critical, Vladeck houses was a critical deviation from the natural boundary of that bridge coming across. And that's why that hook occurred there. There was an intentional move by the districting commission in 1990 to include Vladeck houses because it had a significant Latino voting population, to make sure that was put into District 2 to help benefit the demographics of that district.
So if we're talking about, and so again, Vladeck, we haven't moved it. Vladeck is still in 1 in this map. But if we're talking about rebalancing between 3 and 1 now, so 2 is okay, 4 is still okay. This red area I've grabbed is basically about the population we would need to move from 3 into 1 in order to make the populations whole again. I can tell you the areas are between, looks like Spring Street, this right here is 6th Avenue. And then we kind of stair step up Carmine to Bleecker, and then Leroy to Bedford, and then Barrow Street. This is just a version of this, by the way. We don't have to do this exact configuration, but this is roughly 6,400 people, which is about what we need to take out of 3 and into 1, roughly 6,400 people. That's the minimum. It's actually closer, about 6,300 is the minimum, but this is about what we need to take out of 3 into 1. We could take more, a little more, if you wanted to, but this is just kind of giving you an idea of the minimum we would need to take out of 3 to put into 1 in order to get our populations to balance again.
But then once you do that, what are the implications for 3?
So 3 would be, population would be balanced.
And 1 would be balanced.
VAPs for each. So I'll give you the VAP for
Yep.
1 first. So if we made this change, 1, the Hispanic VAP would be 12.3. The Asian VAP would be 32.2. Hispanic CVAP would be 12.5. That's what, if we made this change to 1.
And
For 3, the
you know me from before. Before you jump to 3, stay with 1 so I can at least get the comparisons of 1 to 1, and then 3 to 3.
So 1, the way we have it drawn before this, 1, the Hispanic VAP is 12.5%. The Asian VAP is 33.17. So it really doesn't.
33.17 compared to what again? Now
32.2.
Okay.
So it goes down about point. Goes down one would go down about 1 point Asian VAP.
Okay. So that's 1.
Right. So now going to 3. 3 is currently 14.57% Hispanic VAP, 15.5% Asian VAP, and 14.8% Hispanic CVAP. That's 3, the way we have it drawn. But again, it's 6% over. So those numbers don't really mean anything in the context of what we're doing. But what 3 would become, if we made this change, is 3 would be 14.8% Hispanic VAP, 15.78% Asian, and 15% Hispanic CVAP.
Yeah. I hear all those numbers, but haven't you just sliced up the West Village?
Good point, Monsignor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all those VAP numbers mean nothing. You cut up the West Village.
And going totally counter what we were trying to do.
Right.
The map is, as you know, Monsignor, just doing what we're asking at this point. So, but
Right.
again, as a reminder, in trying to make as many communities whole.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's how we do it, I guess.
Right.
That's all.
Well, what do we need to take out of? We need to take out of 3. Is that what we need, or out of 1?
Out of 3, roughly 6,300 people minimum.
And did we add that many in by moving, and I know the testimony, but by moving from 6th Avenue to 5th Avenue? Is that what we did?
Yeah, that's part of it. Part of it is moving this here, and part of it is also moving these houses down here.
Yeah. I mean, I have great sympathy for what Greg has said. You know, there's, you know, a lot of stuff was nicely done. And I I agree with Maria. There are changes that can be done, which I think we did and achieved. But I'm not sure we need to do all of this to achieve what we did. You know, pulling that 28th Street area, I think helps. There's really a little bit of flexibility on the north side of 2 with 4. Playing over here strikes me a bridge too far.
Commissioner Mateo? Maria?
I don't know what would be the alternative.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
I don't know what would be the alternative.
Well, this is being caused, this ripple effect right here because of the Vladeck move, correct?
No,
No,
Vladeck is stated
we
one.
didn't move it.
I thought that's what we were talking about before. I apologize about that. I thought that
No, it's okay.
No, it's
This is-
further up
this-
where we moved.
This is coming from the West Village move, pretty much. It's mostly the West Village move that has caused it.
Wait, I'm sorry. I thought that what we were just talking about here was moving CD1 up in the northwest corridor to make up for losing the Hispanic population from Vladeck in the south.
No, to make up for
No.
losing the Hispanic population here
Oh,
in the
I'm
Lower
sorry, in
East
that
Side.
section. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right. The infill section there.
Right.
And why did we move that section there?
The options were this area or Vladeck to move into 2 to increase or bolster the Hispanic population of 2. You had the options of this or Vladeck. And the decision was made, if you kept Vladeck in 1, you would move this area.
But didn't we pick up more Hispanic population to 2 by moving that 28th Street area?
We did, but it did not get it close to that 2% that you were looking for.
But it did get us in the right direction.
Yeah, I think it moved at 0.12% or so, 0.14%.
So now we have to remove a portion of the West Village from the second district and split it into 1 and 3.
Well, sorry, Fabian, really quick. If you go back south of Delancey Street,
This is Delancey here.
I don't think that's a huge population here where it says
This?
Seward Park extent, that little side. I'm seeing some Hispanic population there. I'm wondering what that does.
So you're saying put this into 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm seeing Hispanic population there. That's what we're talking about. So just trying to, because as the Monsignor pointed out, I mean, we're then taking a cleaver to the West Village there.
So I believe this is all one, this right here and this right here are the same development.
Same complex, Seward Park.
So I'm gonna grab both of them. So if you were to add this into 2, leave that there. This right here would be another 4,700 people in the 2, so we would have to remove another 4,700 out of 2.
But adding them in, does that give us what Maria's?
Well, if we did that, I wouldn't know because 2 would be so overpopulated, we need to remove the population.
Yeah, we have to move out. Mm-hmm.
And then 1's underpopulated. That's the, yeah.
1 is currently underpopulated the way we have it. Yes, 1 needs to, so this would be taking more out of 1, so
Yeah.
1 would have to get even more population, yes.
And then we can achieve that by adding the West Village, some part of the West Village to 1.
So should I add this to 2?
Let's try it. Let's try it and then see what happens.
So I added that to 2. So now we still need to get about 6,300 people out of 3. And we still, now it looks like we need to probably get about 5,000 or so out of 2.
How does that increase the
It is.
Hispanic population?
We wouldn't know until we move populations around.
Strikes me as just looking at the colors and knowing how those areas are developing, I'm not sure it's going to achieve any significant long-term political effect. What are those blue things above the finger that sticks down from 2 into 1?
This is all this block and these blocks are all one NYCHA development.
And how about above that too?
This is also NYCHA development.
Okay, so then.
We need to really decide how we're going to operate on this because we're bogged down right now and we still have the other boroughs and also other parts of Manhattan to get to as well. So I want to always be respectful to our commissioners as far as, the issues and the questions that are raised. And so just go back to Commissioner Mateo and then say, how do you want us to proceed? Because again, we have to deal with the end product of not trying to carve up the West Village and then the domino effect that would take place as far as adding and subtracting. So I just want to be conscious of always of our commissioners.
So if we're not cutting down the West Village, where can we remove people from the second district? Because it's overpopulated. Where else can we get people out of the district?
I think we're kind of asking that holistically, right? So Maria, where does that population come from?
Yeah, where are we gonna take them from?
So Maria, let me ask you that, I don't mean to put you on the spot. We overpopulated by moving the last move we made. And going back to something I said before, I understand that if we take that 28th Street area, we haven't added an entire 2% Hispanic VAP, but we've added more than 1%. Does that get us close enough so that we don't have to carve up anything with the full understanding it doesn't get us all the way there, but it certainly gets us closer?
To be clear, it wasn't 1%, it was 0.1%.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, fine.
And it might have been higher, it might have been 0.2, but I think it was.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I mean, the 1.1, it's better than the 16. It will get us to 17 what?
If you'd like me to undo all the changes, I can tell you what it was before we started making these changes.
You said before was 16.2H.
Bryn, did you have that number down that I gave?
Before you added south of around Delancey and south of Houston?
Yeah, before I added any of this stuff in, what was the number for, did you have the number for 2?
I did not write that down.
I'm just gonna go ahead and undo these changes and we can read them after, and then I can tell you. This is before we took the West Village area, okay? Before I took West Village, 2 was, and this is after we've moved that 32nd Street area, okay, before West Village. 2 is now at 17.07 Hispanic VAP, 16.56 Hispanic CVAP. That's before we did the West Village change.
And in our revised plan, it was 16.7% Latino VAP and 16.3% Latino CVAP.
So it went up 0.2% CVAP.
Yeah.
And the current district boundaries, I think you guys gave that before. I apologize. I didn't jot that down. What is it currently?
The current Hispanic VAT for District 2 is 18.3%, and the current Hispanic CVAP for District 2 is 17.8%. And I want to make a note because we're talking about this. CVAP especially, but VAP as well, is more of a, it's not, we shouldn't think of it as an exact number. And especially when a district isn't a performing district, such as District 2, these numbers, slight changes, even 2, even 5% isn't going to make a huge difference in the goal of using VAP and CVAP, which is electability of candidates of choice. So these really need to be thought in terms of communities being kept together and not looking just at slight changes in the numbers.
I'm sorry. So you said the current CVAP is 17.8, not 18?
17.8%, yeah.
And then with this changes, it will go down to 16.56.
Right.
Which is higher than the revised plan, which was 16.3.
Yeah, but by very, very little. I do believe we need to add a little bit more Latino population.
Say that again, Maria. I'm sorry.
I do believe that we need to add a little bit more Latino population to the second district.
So if we took out that West Village section again, starting there, and then if you'd like, instead of moving that other houses, I can grab this area down here first, and you can see what this does to 2. So this is, if I added this to 2, we'd actually need to add quite a bit more to 2 in order to get population up. But if I, grabbed a couple of blocks to make this evened out, that gets us to about what we need to be. If I added this area in instead of this Lower East Side infill area, if I added this area instead, with this again, I moved the West Village portion from 6th to 5th again. Remember, I did that already. But adding this into 2 would give 2 back to total population it needs. This would make 2 18.2% Hispanic VAP, 17.9% Hispanic CVAP. If I added this area in to 2.
And that's coming from 1?
Coming from 1. And then 1 would have to take from 3.
And how many people?
This right here is 7,000 people.
And how about the Asian population?
In 1 or in 2?
Now in 1, if you made the change.
Well, I wouldn't know because I'd have to take population into 1, so it wouldn't be an accurate number if I give it to you right
now. That's pretty close.
How many Asians are in that?
In this little spot?
Yes.
It's roughly 24% Asian in this little chunk. It's 24% Asian, 33% Hispanic VAP.
And what does that do for 1 then? I mean, I know when.
Well, we wouldn't know until we
I
rebalance
know.
with 3.
Yeah.
So let's play that scenario.
Say that again, Maria.
Let's play that scenario.
So again, the way we have 1 drawn now, it is 32.65% Asian VAP. Okay, I want you to keep that number in mind while we make these changes. 1 is 32.65. So I'll go ahead and make this change into 2.
I mean, we take a look at it, but I just think this is going to have a big impact on one now.
Yeah.
We're just moving everything around, and it's, you know.
And then 1 we'll have to take out of 3.
And then 3 we'll have to take from somewhere else.
No, 3.
And we're
3
going to
just
the
needs
West Village
shed.
again.
Shed needs to 3 needs to shed population, period. That's just 3 just needs to give up a lot.
3 now needs to give up a lot.
Yeah, because remember, 3 took the West Village portion. Remember, I took this West Village back. I put that back, though. That was the thing that allowed 2 to grab that Hispanic population.
Huh. Okay.
What is that population there on the south of 3? What's that housing area? I'm blanking on the name off the top of my head. If you know.
It's not a NYCHA development, but I couldn't. James Walter Park is over here. I couldn't.
Yeah.
Walter. I don't know what else to say about the area. If anybody knows. Okay, so this would actually do it if we made this change here. Actually, I can see if I can get rid of these 2. Yeah, this gets us fine. So essentially this area here, you would have to put into 1 in order to make populations work between 3 and 1.
Right.
Um,
And
So I
that's
understand
the
you.
same chopping up of the West Village.
Yes.
and
Yeah, we can't do that.
Hasn't changed that, correct.
I agree with,
You know, I'm just gonna, again, you know, I said something to this effect when we voted last week. There's an elephant in the room here. We want to get these maps as good as they can be. That is our role. And this moving around now that's happening today, this late in the game, after receiving all this public testimony from council members and the public at large, is making ripple effects across just Manhattan. We're in the southern part of Manhattan only right now, and it's 7 o'clock. We need to revert back, I think, to ways things were, and keep moving forward in the borough at this point.
I do not agree with that. I think that any of our concerns, we have to keep into consideration that any movement that we do in the map is gonna have a ripple effect on something else.
Precisely.
And-
So Maria, how do we fix this? I'm trying to understand. We're saying we need to do all this in Council District 2, which then causes a problem in Council District 1, which then causes a Council District 3 issue. And what I'm saying is, we need to get these lines and these districts in as good shape as they can be to then get more additional feedback. And what I'm saying right now is moving all of this around. I don't know how we move past the lower Manhattan issue before the night ends.
Well, that's a problem that we're facing because of this, like Monsignor said, this 5% deviation is giving us a lot of issues. But with the Latino community, unfortunately, adding the West Village to the 2nd district is diluting our vote. And I can't accept that.
So the reality is that we've discussed a lot of this before. And again, we will not get a job done at all if we continue to have this domino effect. And I understand and very respectful of what Commissioner Mateo is saying, but we're talking about a basic 1.5% to 2% difference. And then with that, though, if we try to equalize that, it causes the impact throughout the entire borough of Manhattan. And we have a job in front of us, and we have to be responsible for the entire city itself. And so I'm just very conscious of, not just the issue of the percentages, but how we try to lay it out and address concerns. And what Mike and Mark did in Staten Island was a trade that allowed us to form a consensus around that borough. Here, we're slicing and dicing and getting basically a 1.5% increase in Hispanic population, but then we're going to lose it in another area. And then we're going to have to go up to Upper Manhattan, and it's just going to have an impact the entire city. And we are locked into, I mean, let's be very clear, we are locked into 5%. So there's no way around 5%. That's the reality that we have to face. Maria, can I suggest this so we can, if it's okay with you, to allow us to move on? Can we put a pin in this right now and then come back to visit again, as we've done in the past with our map drawing? Because again, we're just going into a circular motion at this particular point, and we're going to slice and dice, and then that's not going to satisfy. And so we have all these variables that we tried to fit into a nice, neat package earlier, and that we're just tearing that package apart right now.
I agree. We can move on, and I guess we can brainstorm other ideas at another time.
Okay, I just want to just be respectful, but also knowing that it is now 7:07, and you even yourself have a hard stop at 8, and then we have tomorrow, which probably will have to go a little bit over, but that's another discussion when we wrap up. So with your permission, I will move us along, because we also had in Manhattan conversations around District 7, I think, were raised. And then that tied into.
Mr. Chair, can I just
Yes,
ask Fabian before we move to 7?
Please. Go ahead.
Can Fabian, can you just move the map up to the boundary of 5 and 8? I just want to see something that I really couldn't make out on the sort of the printed maps.
Sure.
If you move north.
I will. I just need to know, am I adding this to 1 or no?
And I think I heard Maria say, let's go to where we were, and then we'll put a pin, and then.
Okay, so we're going back before.
Is that a
we move to
correct
West Village.
interpretation,
Are we keeping the Kips Bay movement?
I think we should, we all agree to keep the Kips Bay for now.
Okay, then I'm going to leave that part as it is, and then I'll move up to 5 and 8. I believe you said, correct, Commissioner Brazel?
That's that northern boundary between 5 and 8.
So this is 95th Street to 3rd, 96th Street to Madison, 95th Street.
And we loop down Stanley Isaacs, correct? That's the drop down.
Right
there in the East River. Could you move the map down a little? Okay. You know what? In the printed maps that were shared, I just was concerned that the boundary might have grabbed. There's a community aquatics center and a it's a landmark for the Upper East Side, and
Asphalt Green.
and the transfer station is over there as well, what the community had been opposed to, but now has a monitor with the sanitation department. I just wanted to make sure that remained in District 5.
You're good?
It looks like it's still in District 5. If you could just move the map down just a little bit, because it sits, it looks like it's in 5.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Asphalt Green's York and over in that little section there.
Yeah, no, I know exactly where it is, but in the, when we were looking at the maps with it looked like some of the boundaries were written in a very thick Sharpie that just got all mushed up as you got to the East River. And I was just concerned, and I figured just for housekeeping, I wanted to just make sure that that remained in 5.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, so I want to get to Greg for a second, Kirschenbaum, because Greg, you had raised a couple of points, and I want to make sure they're touched on as well around.
Yeah, well, I had just received some feedback that I passed on to the districting commission. And I think we received some testimony in regards to the CD 6 and 7 border.
Yes.
And I think I had also passed along though as well that, I think there's population concerns and issues about moving any of those lines. That being said, I thought we needed to just kind of take a look at those, to ensure that obviously we did a good thorough review of everything that's come through.
I've heard that feedback as well, and I think that we've
I
had,
did too.
I'm sorry, Maria,
I did too.
you did as well, yeah.
Yes,
Okay, so we have consensus. Let's just take a look at that.
yes.
So this is the line here, the screen line between 6 and 7. Goes 96th Street to Columbus, down to 92nd to Amsterdam, down to 91st, and then back over to West End, up West End to 96th Street again.
May I ask what were the original lines?
Could I just ask before we do this, just read us the populations now in 10, 7, 6. How much flexibility do we have in moving stuff around?
So 10 is at the max.
Okay,
7 is about 100 people off the max.
okay,
And 6 is about 400 or 500 people off the max.
okay.
So what
So
would,
realistically, you could move 400 to 500 people into 6, and then rebalance. 7 would still be okay, or you can rebalance between 7 and 10 at that point. But it's about 400 or 500 people is the most amount of people you can move before 6 becomes overpopulated.
what was the original line again on 6?
You can see this gray blue line. That was the original 6.
96th Street.
Yeah, it takes 96th Street to, I believe, Broadway, and then up Broadway. And it goes up Broadway to 109th. So that was the original line here.
And can we
Go
also
ahead,
see the
Maria.
original line on the 7th?
That's the same line.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
So the testimony then is asking for what? Or the comment?
Mark, do you want to go? I'm sorry, Greg, do you want to go?
Yeah, so I think the testimony that came in was talking about that 90th to 96th Street stretch that's kind of carved out there. And then I do think that taking Broadway up, does it go all the way up to like 110th? Give or take? 109th, yeah. Again, I'm looking at the numbers, seeing as how close everything is. I don't know how those, certainly I don't see how both of those can be achieved. I'm not sure how that, because I don't know where the population from 6 then goes if it takes on too much. Because 3 is in like
3
at the numbers
is
too, right?
So 3 could actually take some population, but not, I wouldn't
Not a
say a
ton.
lot. But the problem is, this is the Hell's Kitchen
That's the
issue,
Hell's Kitchen issue.
where there was a lot of testimony about the Hell's Kitchen not wanting to.
Don't touch it, yes.
Yeah, we
Understood.
solved Hell's Kitchen, so let's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just ask real quickly, the Hell's Kitchen, right now the baseline, it's at West 54th, is that the boundary? Because there is testimony we've received that they would like it to go up to 57. If there's any flexibility.
This is 54th. So you want to move it to 57th instead?
What I'm saying is that there was testimony. If we're moving things around, if you just want to keep that in mind, I know that they are trying to push the boundary back to 57.
I can
So
tell
keep
you
in mind
population.
as we're moving population, not now, not for me, but I'm just saying that that was something that was mentioned, and I just wanted you to keep that in mind.
I think, these districts that we are now working on, they are good to go, because if you touch one, you have to touch the rest. That is the problem.
Yeah, that just so the commissioners are aware, this line here is 57th Street. This grouping here is 11,000 people.
Look at this.
So this is a huge chunk of people.
Yeah.
If we were to move it up to 57th Street, just so you're aware of the numbers we're talking about with that comment with 57th Street.
Or you can only move 500.
Right. Well, we can only move 500 between 6, 7, 10.
Yeah.
3 can actually add a little bit. 3 might be able to add about 1,000 or maybe even up to 1,500 out of 6. And if you did that, you would then open up more population for 6 to grab out of 7. However, it's moving that Hell's Kitchen line. So if you're comfortable moving that line, you can do that.
And city council member from 7, I think, testified 2-3 times. What he sees now, he's happy with that. Changing his district will be another problem again.
Well, I'm sorry to bring this up again, because we do have 2 Dominican legislators on District 7. And the comments that I received is that adding the Upper West Side to the district and extending it down to 90th Street will significantly reduce the Dominican voting population. So
That's a great question. And this is something Dr. Hanley had brought up, and I want to talk a little bit about this specific issue between 7, 10, and actually it's 9 is involved in this one. Dr. Hanley had mentioned this as well, but the fact that 7 was being reduced in Hispanic VAP, and that might be an issue. But the reason it's becoming this, the reason we're having this issue is basically we cannot cross over from 10 into the Bronx. So we have to follow the county line on 3 sides for 10 essentially, right? Which means population wise, we can only come down into Manhattan. And by doing that, to get 10 to a population, you can only leave X amount of population, Hispanic population for 7. Because if you look at it, the Hispanic population for 7 is all going up this way. And so there's not enough Hispanic population to split between 10 and 7, essentially to make 2 heavily Hispanic districts. And that's why we end up having 7 for population. Yes, it can grab that, but it can't go grab out of the Black population in 9. So it has to move south. And the only way is south, because if you look, the Harlem population, this Black block kind of moves straight up across. So if you're not going to remove the CVAP protections of 9, 7 is only going to be able to move south into the Upper West Side. That's the only way it can move, because there's no other direction it can go, because 10 is landlocked by the county line.
and can we get the BOP numbers from before and after?
Bryn, do you have
For
those
7,
numbers
please?
for 7?
Yes.
Yep. Before meaning
Current city council.
the current city council. Okay. So the VAP for 7 under the current lines drawn in 2013 is 39.6% Hispanic VAP and 38.6% Hispanic CVAP.
And then the revision that we had.
So then the revised plan is 32.8% Hispanic CVAP or Hispanic VAP, sorry, and then 32.6% Hispanic CVAP. So it's a loss of about 7% for each.
Right. And again,
Isn't that what Dr. Hanley was talking about at?
yeah,
Yes,
this
yes.
is exactly what Dr. Hanley, and again, just to kind of make it clear, it's really about where we're stuck with kind of this landlocked portion of 10. So 10 can only move from the top of Manhattan down. It's the only way it can't go, because it can't go into the Bronx, because we already have a crossover district in 8. So we can't cross 10 into the Bronx. So the only way it can get population is moving down Manhattan, and that's the heavily Latino, heavily Hispanic population coming down. Because of that, 7 cannot grab, as you can see, it used to grab this area here. It's just, it can't take that population. It's too much population to remove and then move it down. So the only way 7 can go, because it can't grab population from this area over here in 8, because of the Black population in 9, it can only move south into the Upper West Side. So that's kind of the reason. This is the thing Dr. Hanley had talked about. She said she looked into it herself and tried to figure out a way to fix this problem, and did not readily see an apparent fix, a solution. That's the reason.
Yeah.
Not saying there is no solution. What I'm saying is that's the reason we got to this point.
Fabian, I think, there's a significant drop, but the same issue in Washington Heights is the issue on Staten Island. The decrease in population. That's what's driving it, and the need to get as close as possible to the average population. So that it's quite frankly, maybe it's the landlocked age, but the nature is that certain parts of the city have lost population. And that's what we're trying to grapple with at that point. There's just not enough of the population in the old districts to do it. And so they got to move. And that's what we're trying to balance as best we can.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
There was a question as to whether or not, because 10, as it's drawn, 10 has a 64% Hispanic VAP. And there was a question as to whether or not we could take some of that and reduce it slightly to add to 7. But again, the problem is, in order to grab this Hispanic area from 10, 10 would have to grab non-Hispanic area from 7. And that's all down in the southern portion. So 10 would be following a tiny line to get all the way down here in order to grab this way down the park, in order to grab non-Hispanic portion for 10, in order to balance out. That's the only way you would be able to get to the non-Hispanic population, is coming down through here. So that's kind of, again, partially because the landlocked, again, also because we have the population did not grow as fast as the rest of Manhattan. We kind of have this push and pull of not able to draw 7 with a high enough VAP to be close to what we had in the 2013 districts.
So Fabian, is it possible to go a couple of streets, I guess, up for 7?
100 people.
That's it. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Well, I'm sorry, not 100, 500. The max we can move is about 400 to 500 people. Because if we take 507 from 10, we can then take 500 out of 7 to 6, but that puts 6 at the max as well. So we can definitely do a couple blocks here and there.
But it doesn't change the overall percentage, though.
The overall percentage is going to be very, very modestly changed, 0.1, 0.2 possibly percent change. We're not talking any major change.
What will be the benefit of doing that if we do?
To just speak candidly, the biggest benefit I would see to doing any movement from 10 into 7 would be that you would then allow 6 to move its lineup slightly here. And I know that's part of the reason we started this conversation, is you wanted 6. Sorry, I'm moving around. I know a lot, but I'm trying to show you the area.
Yeah.
6 didn't want to come all the way down to 91st. So if you wanted to take any population into 6, you can move as much as you want into 6 to get this to that 2.5, and then you can take it out of 10 into 7, and you would increase 7 slightly. Yes, we could do that.
Will it conflict with any of the testimonies of these areas?
Michael?
Other than the polo grounds, I don't know if there's a lot of testimony between the border of 7 and 10.
Oh, okay.
So can we try that to see if
Yeah.
the numbers improve a little bit?
Sure. So let's start with 6, because that's the direction we have to move in. I'll tell you what we can grab in 6 to get 6 to a max percent. Actually, that's already too much. That right there is what we can grab for 6.
Wow.
One block.
One block.
That's enough.
That's what we can grab for 6. And then we'd be able to grab probably 1 block from 10 to 7. These are highly dense areas. That's the reason.
Yeah, that's exactly. Manhattan.
So if you'd like, we can move this block.
But it's de minimis. It really doesn't accomplish anything. But I mean,
Yep.
No.
right? I mean, we all agree that. I mean,
Yeah.
because we went through this before, and obviously we want to raise it again. But really, the opportunity to make significant change is not there. And as you said, our expert took a look at this, and a thorough look at this, and she could not find a way to address that, but also felt comfortable that it still met.
We're on safe ground.
Yeah.
Right now.
Thank you,
The
Doc.
way it is.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
One thing I was going to suggest, could we just move a few more blocks into 3 at the northern border, at the border between 3 and 5?
Between 3 and 6?
3 and 6, I'm sorry.
So yeah, we can definitely do that. That's that Hell's Kitchen border.
Yeah, okay.
Oh.
That would,
Where's the border?
so if we want to move this, we definitely can. It's just, I know there was a lot of conversation about the Hell's Kitchen area and not wanting to really mess with that. But
Yep.
yes, you can move some out of it.
Just to increase the population, decrease the population of 7 so that there's more flexibility up there.
Yeah, that would allow you, anything you took into 3 would allow you to take more of 7 into 6, which would then allow you to take more Hispanic population out of 10 into 7. Yes, anything you did of that nature would increase the Hispanic population of 7 in the kind of 3rd step of that process. However, I want to be clear, it is moving the Hell's Kitchen line. And I know there was a lot of contention about that.
I don't know if somebody else was talking, but we went to significant lengths to both hear and try to incorporate the testimony around Hell's Kitchen and locked in on that line. And so again, I hate to put him on the spot, but Greg, I mean, you're the Manhattan person who's familiar with this. That would really disrupt the line, correct?
If I actually had to step away for a minute, my mom is here helping with my son, and she's about to leave. So I was saying goodbye to my mom.
Priorities,
I didn't
man.
get to hear that whole conversation.
Families
My
first.
apologies.
Families
So,
first. No need to apologize.
The question that came was, if we move the Hell's Kitchen line north slightly, that would allow us to take population out of 6 into 3, which 3 can take, which would allow us to take more of 7 into 6, which would allow us to take more Hispanic population out of 10 into 7, ultimately increasing the Hispanic VAP slightly, very, very slightly in 7. Might be 1%, might be less, might be more, but probably close to that. The question was, however, there was a lot of work done on this 54th Street line. So is the commission comfortable moving that in any way, shape, or form north?
Well, again, remind me, I think we talked about a little earlier that there was also some of that testimony that the 55th Street line is a line in Hell's Kitchen, but some people view as 57 as the sort of Hell's Kitchen boundary. Is that what that's what I remember. I don't have the testimony all in front of me, but is that correct?
And Greg, I mean, my impression is the issue is the problems and the issues were south of the line. If the line is moved up to Central Park South, I don't think anyone's going to have an issue with the line moving up. It's ripping apart the neighborhood by chopping off blocks headed south.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Agreed.
just as the other Manhattan commissioner, that's generally my impression. And the previous and I'm an honorary Staten Island commissioner, and I lived 40 years in Queens. So
you're an honorary every borough commissioner. So let's just put that out there like that.
So the previous line, for 6 kind of cut off at Central Park South, didn't it? Yeah, I mean, so again, I think the controversy is anything we do to cut the line south of 55th, but moving them north, I don't think there's going to be we will get significant rancor.
So if I were to tell you the amount of population, so I'm going to kind of give everyone an idea. There is a school right here. I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but I'm just grabbing. See, this is already too much. That right there would be what we could grab into 3. That would put 3 at 2.46% over. So this, if we move these 2 blocks into 3, that would give us a little more wiggle room at the top with 6 and 7. But again, very minimal changes.
And I was gonna say that I don't think those minimal changes will get District 7 back to plurality.
No.
District anyway.
Right. It'll probably go from 30. It's what 32, 33 right now. It might get up to 32 and a half, 33 and a half, maybe 34. It's not going to make a significant change.
What's the population variance for Council District 4 right now?
The way we have it drawn?
Yeah.
2.2. Now, again, I'm going to have to grab 1 block out of 2. And this is part of that discretion that y'all let me, in the end, go kind of clean stuff up. I'll probably have to grab a block out of 2 to 4 in order to, because 2 is a little bit over, but it's about a block over, so I can move a block.
Because I do know that there was also some testimony, I think, that we received about the Carnegie Hall, excuse me, change. It moved from 4, it currently resides in 4. And due to the moving things around, we moved that from 4 to 6. If we're talking about trying to take pressure off the 3, 6, 7, I don't know how much of a change that will really be population-wise, but in a world where that then moves, because it looks like 4 is at 2.2, which has a little bit of flexibility possibly. If that,
this is Carnegie Hall right here.
yeah.
So I'm just kind of, so I could see it. So if we wanted to take that population just to get that block, let me tell you. That would make 4 overpopulated. Just that block. Yeah, it'd be overpopulated. 4 would be overpopulated.
Okay. Yeah, I was just seeing if there's a way to move that 6 to 4, 3 kind of just that.
Yeah, we could, if we move
effect, but, yeah.
that block and then, yeah, it'd be the ripple again. We'd have to move things around in 5 different districts to get them out.
Yeah. Okay.
So did you want me to move these 2 blocks into 3?
So it seems to me that the challenge is that the Hispanic population in 7 went down. If we could do something that didn't disrupt the whole apple cart by moving even a block or 2 north, the boundary on 6 to kind of help 7 a little bit, it's not going to be much. I would say doing that, but as long as it wouldn't disrupt a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And Mark's right. Nobody's going to be upset if you move that line of 3 north. They're going to get problematic if you move it south.
So I'll go ahead and move 3, and I'll kind of give you an idea of what this, because we're talking a lot of hypotheticals. Let me give you an idea of what it actually does when we move the population for 7. So if you recall, 7's Hispanic VAP, the way we have it drawn, is 32.8 VAP, 32.6 CVAP. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what it goes to after we make these changes. So I moved a little bit into 3, and now I'm going to move just a block into 6 or so, just to kind of give us, actually that's too much. So forget this instead. I'm trying to get the highest percentage change here. That would probably be it. So if I move that into 6, those 3 blocks into 6, that allows me then for 7 to grab some Hispanic blocks up out of 10. Let me turn on the Hispanic filter. So if I were to just grab, for instance, like the block here, let's see what that does. It's too much. This, what we would end up with is 7, the new Hispanic VAP would be 33.37, and the Hispanic CVAP would be 33.45. So it would go up about 0.3%, which is what I said. It's probably not even going to be a full percent. So it goes up. Doing all these changes gets us 0.3% more Hispanic in 7.
0.3, you're saying
3.3%, 0.3, not 3.
I don't know.
Let's lock it in. Agreed?
Yeah, it's not a giant impact, but it's better than, it seems a little better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a huge impact, but it is a slight change.
And it's being respectful to the feedback that we've received without really being able to do anything else. So I would say lock it in if the group agrees. Group agrees?
Yes.
For sure.
Agreed.
Yes. Sure.
Okay.
If that makes
Agreed.
sense, and I have no problem.
Okay, let's lock
Trying
it
to
in.
find the best Yeah, that would probably be the best.
And we are
right
not
there.
conflicting with any of the testimonies previously we heard, that's good.
Now, as the other commissioner from Manhattan, along with Kevin, the other commissioner from Manhattan, along with Greg, indicated that would be south and not here. So yeah, we're fine.
Okay, so making those changes now, 7 again. Hispanic VAP is 33.37. Hispanic CVAP is 33.45.
That's CVAP.
That was, the last number was CVAP, yes.
So then, just look at the list here. We touched on 6, we touched on 4, we touched on 2 significantly, did not come to any conclusion with 2. And then I know in general, because we are now at 7:37, there were questions raised in general around Hispanic representation. So that was 2 and 7. 8 is the Bronx, correct?
Bronx, Manhattan
Crossborough.
crossover district.
Manhattan Bronx crossover. I'm just hesitant, and you guys push me back in that aside from Darren, I'm assuming Darren's still on, we don't have our 2 Bronx
I'm
representatives.
still on.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
we
still
don't-
on.
Okay.
but we don't have
the-
Lisa.
Right, that's how I'm going, Maria. Yep, we don't have Lisa
And
Yovan.
Yovan.
Collado.
And Yovan.
And Yovan.
Collado.
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
exactly. So I would hold off and put a pin on that until tomorrow for District 8, because that obviously if you remember, had a lot of back and forth around 8 and the challenges with 8 and what it meant in the crossover. So I think being all respectful, we need to have Yovan as well as Lisa, along with Darren and the full Bronx representation there. Is there an agreement around that?
Yes.
I'm in
Yes.
agreement.
Okay,
I
fine.
was okay with moving forward with that.
I remember your comment, sir. Yep. I just want you to be a part of it as well. So then we should hold
Thank you,
off.
sir.
This is good. Brooklyn is going to be complicated. So I would
Yes,
definitely put Brooklyn into tomorrow, because if we spent all this time already dealing with Manhattan, Brooklyn, forget about it. And we need to really think about it, because we are also time locked. When we talk about landlocked, we're time locked as well. So Brooklyn has to be significant discussion tomorrow. And like I said, I'll be only 1 minute late. I'll just give hello and then hop on. So that way we have the maximum amount of time. So I know there were concerns also around Queens. So do we want to just start to discuss Queens? Because then we'll have Bronx, most of Queens, and then Brooklyn tomorrow. And that's a full agenda. So I'll defer to Commissioner Roselle. You want to kick us off with Queens, or Maria, anyone?
No, I think Queens did not have much except 24 and 23. I think we got some testimony. We saw some. Council member Jim Gennaro and few other Jewish people, I think, is saying something. So
Yes.
that will be quick, I hope.
Right, and Mark also, I think, had a point as well. So let's touch on Queens.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can preview this because, again, time is fleeting. But as you may recall, when we wrapped up our discussions for the plan that we ended up rejecting, I apologize for the inordinate amount of time I spent, trying to, fix an issue, a community of interests between 28 and 32. And then I was actually given the opportunity to a second shot, and I couldn't get it together. Well, I think I have a solution. First, completely avoiding 28 and leaving 28 as it is. But I wanted to make some suggestions about realigning 30, 32, and 29 to add a portion of 29 into 32 to replace that population in 29 by taking from 30 and then adding population from 32 into 30, basically a merry-go-round. So I guess starting with the swap between 32 and 29, I wanted to propose something that Commissioner Go had initially made a proposal as an alternative to my wanting to add a portion of South Ozone Park. She had recommended adding a portion of Richmond Hill to District 32. I actually, took a look at that again, and what I'm going to propose is to restore a portion of Richmond Hill that was originally in District 32, that runs north of Jamaica Avenue to 114th Street. And I guess it's Bessemer, or let me get the name of the street that connects with the park.
Park Lane?
Well, no, Park Lane is Babbage and Bessemer that run right. Yeah, it's that little diagonal.
Park Lane is adjacent to Forest Park.
Yeah,
So
Park
you're
Lane
talking
South.
about, if I'm not mistaken, this is the area you're talking about. here.
Yes. So it's north of Jamaica Avenue. It's not the entire portion that was in 32. But this is, my initial seat on the merry-go-round that I wanted to propose.
So this area here, which was in 32.
Right.
So putting this area into 32. This area is about 8,300 people.
Okay.
So adding that into 32, correct?
So,
Mark, I have a question. What is this
yes.
accomplishing
The
though?
goal is to dismantle.
Yeah, what does this accomplish at the end
Well,
of the
this is accomplishing a goal of mine, which is to have, a handful, restoring the competitive nature of a handful of districts, in this portion of Queens. So if I can, before we sort of go through, you mentioned the population, Fabian, I wanted to move on to the second portion of this, and then we can get to the third portion, which actually comes up in testimony that was recently submitted to us from community leaders in Glendale. And that is restoring Glendale to District 30.
So the second portion was moving from 30 to 29, correct?
Right. And so my suggestion, and this isn't for those of you who tuned into Council Mapping TV, I've raised this issue before, and that is I really oppose the inclusion, this intrusion into Rego Park beyond the Long Island Railroad, and moving that into 30. So what I was going to recommend is, you see that railroad line there that runs sort of right next to Alderton Street. I wanted to restore all of that to District 29.
Okay, up to 63rd?
No, the whole you have Alderton Street that picks up at Dartmouth. You have Dartmouth on the south boundary. Take Alderton. Alderton is runs, that's where the on the other side of the north side of Alderton is where the Long Island Railroad
runs
to
right
Jamaica.
here.
And then where you see that crescent area, it's called the Crescents.
Right.
That is a spur of the Long Island Railroad, which was the Rockaway branch, which is no longer active. In the last week or so, there was an announcement by the mayor that he's going to be funding something called Queensway.
Right.
They're going to transform this inactive portion of the railroad, which has been growing weeds for the last 60, 70 years. They're going to turn this into a high line of Queens. So that's the area that kind of dips down, but that area that's running straight towards the Long Island Expressway, that's the active portion that will take you to Jamaica. So I wanted that line continued along Alderton toward Woodhaven, where it connects to Woodhaven Boulevard. Now I'd like to, Fabian, if we can capture the homes that are on both sides of Alderton and stop at the railroad.
You want the homes that
Yes.
So the homes on both sides of Alderton in
Right.
29.
In 30.
Got it. So that would
But
be this line
everything on
here.
the other side of that Alderton line is, really the functional part of Rego Park that I don't think, and I've argued, does not align with District 30. They belong in District 29.
So the question I had was this, I'm grabbing this area here, but how far north am I going? I had said
I would
60
go right to Woodhaven Boulevard.
So Woodhaven right here. Okay.
And Woodhaven gets you to the intersection of Woodhaven, the Long Island Expressway, and Queens Boulevard. So that's the boundary that you've just.
Okay, so this right here is basically, this is Woodhaven here.
Yep.
And
This is
that's
Horace
going
Harding?
where,
That's the
Mark?
expressway.
That's
That's going
where?
back into 29.
Okay.
And this is 13,800 people.
Okay. If we could then move down to Glendale.
Before you do that, could you just read the populations for both of the districts, 29, 30, particularly the Asian population?
I couldn't hear you, Judge. What was that?
Could you just read the
Hey,
balance?
Judge Go, can I just impose and ask a favor? Can I just finish this merry-go-round session, and then we can ask Fabian all the questions, but he just said that's about 13,000. That was
13,800.
Okay,
13,800.
so can we, if it's okay with Judge Go, I just wanted to go down to that Glendale portion and see if that can be now put back into District 30.
And all of Glendale?
Yeah, all of Glendale.
So all of Glendale is about 19,500 people.
I would like to keep part of East Glendale in 32 if possible. If it's too much, if all that's too much, maybe keep the eastern part.
Yeah,
32.
That's a very good point, Kevin. If you could bring that up a little larger. There's a portion that is right next to the park that runs from Union Turnpike and Woodhaven Boulevard. And why don't we keep that in 32 and see what that does.
South of Union Turnpike?
Yeah, it's Union Turnpike to Woodhaven Boulevard. That East Glendale portion that
So this right here is Union Turnpike?
correct. And then Woodhaven is that large line that's running down and cutting through the middle of the park.
So take this out as well, is what you're saying?
Yeah, no, just the portion that, Woodhaven Boulevard, Union Turnpike, Woodhaven Boulevard, that portion that nestles into the park.
So the area, this area I just grabbed, this white area.
Right, I can't, if you can just bring that up a little bit, I can't.
So this is Woodhaven right here. And this is Union Turnpike. So this is this right here, where my cursor is the corner of Union Turnpike and Woodhaven.
Does that extend beyond, does that extend west of Woodhaven?
Yes.
Well, that's, I wanted it cut off at Woodhaven Boulevard.
Got it. So cutting it off at Woodhaven.
Right.
Sorry. Okay, so leaving that portion here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, we're still at 18,300.
Okay. And if we could move north to that area that I was proposing to add to in Rego Park back into 29.
Mhm.
If you could just bring that up
It's right here.
larger on the, if you could bring it up larger on the screen.
Sure. This is the area here.
But I don't see the, you haven't, I can't make out what the area that I identified.
Let me do this so you can see it. This is the area here.
Well, you know what, at this point, can you just tell us what these numbers do to the, you know, what we would have to bring the numbers to?
So do you want me to make these
Or-
changes so you can see how
Well,
this
yeah,
affects everything?
you know, these proposed changes, and I'd like, you know, we
Mark,
could,
did you do the third part of your leg?
yes, that was Glendale. That was Glendale.
Okay.
So
I
if
heard
we
that.
could just see what these do to the population, what it does to the variances, and
Okay, so Bryn,
then we
do you
can-
have the revised 30?
and then we can
29?
respond to Judge Ghost's questions about demographics.
Right, Bryn, do you have revised 30, 29, and 32 in front of you before I make these changes?
Yep.
Okay,
I
so
got
I'm gonna
them.
go ahead and make these changes, and then we can talk about revised versus what happens here, so.
Also, I would like to see the current lines as well.
Right, that's current lines. So I'm moving that first. And let me go into 29. Okay, and then last, moving from 29 to 32.
So quick question, in the current lines, Richmond Hill is not included in 29, right?
Part of it is,
Okay.
yeah, a portion of Richmond Hill. Richmond Hill's kind of split between 3 districts in current plans.
Okay.
That
Okay.
is the problem will start, you know.
Okay, so doing that. Turn off. Okay, so doing that, 32 would still be about 10,000 under. And 29 is slightly is over by about 5,000 from the ideal. But so 32 would still be about 10,000. So we'd still need to put roughly 10,000 people into 32, probably from most of it, if not all of it, from 29 to get us, and probably maybe a part of it from 30 in order to get us back into a population balance.
And 30 is right at, you know, it's
0.72 over. So yeah, it's over by about 1,200 people. So it could shed a bit as well. But you would need to get, we need to get about 10,000 to 32 at this point. That's
you
kind
know
of our
what?
goal.
It is approaching 8 o'clock. So as the chairman likes to say, diplomatically, can we put a pin in this? And we'll just pick this conversation up tomorrow.
Well, could you just turn on the
But
heat?
yeah, but Judge Go had
Yeah, I was
questions,
gonna
so
say,
I'd
before we
like you
do
to
it-
answer them if it's possible.
Yeah.
Yes, let's get to the
I-
judge.
You know, I think you're sort of redistributing the Asian population and
Exactly.
So this area here is mostly white, a little tiny bit Hispanic, but mostly white. This area up here in Rego Park is heavily Asian.
Mm-hmm.
And this area down here
Richmond
in
Hill.
Richmond Hill is heavily Hispanic.
Oh, this portion is Hispanic. Okay.
Right. So basically, a heavily Hispanic portion will be moving to 32. A heavily Asian portion will be moving to 29. And then a heavily white portion will be moving to 30. That's a rough estimation, though, without looking at the exact numbers.
And just another reminder that when we're talking about the Richmond Hill Kew Garden or Richmond Hill area, we're talking about an Indo-Caribbean population that isn't always reflected in the census designated racial and ethnic groups. So just to keep that in mind.
Yes.
Meaning it's part of, quote, Asian.
Yes, we tried to keep them. We wanted originally Richmond Hill and South Ozone Park in one district. We could not do that. Then finally we agreed last time that Richmond Hill will be on the, I think on 29, and then Ozone Park will be in, I forgot what is the district now. But both of them are kind of together. Not together, separate, but in one district. They are not divided. Now this looks like Richmond Hill is getting divided into different districts.
So with that being said, now it's my turn to say that we are now at 7:57. I think this is a nice table setter for us to jump into first thing tomorrow at 10:01. And then from there, we'll jump to Brooklyn. And then from Brooklyn, we'll jump to the Bronx. So that means that we need to be prepared. And I know time is tight and it's a Friday, but we need to be prepared to stay possibly longer than 1 o'clock, because this alone, plus I know there are other parts of Queens that the community responded to as well. And we need to address that. And then jump to Brooklyn, which is potentially a long discussion, and maybe not a long discussion, but we need to be prepared for that. And then the Bronx also. So we have to be timely and also make sure we give our times. So I want to thank all the folks for participating, and to the audience that still is with us. This is the process that we have been going through, and I think the interplay that you've seen between the commissioners and the map makers and our staff is a very dynamic part of our discussion. So if it's okay with the commissioners, I don't know if Grace, do I need to make official motion to close, or I just say thank you?
Probably, yeah, it's a public meeting.
It would be nice to make a motion to adjourn.
All right, I make a motion to recess until Friday morning at 10 a.m.
10:01, 10:01, and then
Sorry, 10:01.
10:01, so I can greet my staff, and I have a second from Mark. I heard his voice.
I just want to take a moment to remind people how easy Staten Island was. Just keep that in the back of your mind.
Oh, yes.
Michael.
Always easy.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Mark. Thank you all. Have a good
Thank you,
night. Rest up.
everyone.
We got a long
Thank
session.
you.
Bye, Maria.
All right.
Thank you,